Stand up, New York Giant fans. Hope you guys are enjoying this offseason. Offseason about to get underway for the New York Giants. Took about a 2-week break during the Super Bowl because I was miserable because I knew I was going to have to watch the Philadelphia Eagles compete for the championship. But we're definitely going to get the offseason up and running. Probably going to try to have a video a day, probably starting next week. Going to have my first mock draft later this week. It'll probably be over the weekend. Just been bogged down with the new job, but probably going to have my first mock draft up either Friday or Saturday. And obviously big news today for the New York Giants today. So wanted to go live, wanted to talk about it with you guys. Haven't, talked to you guys in a little bit. Excited to get a lot of offseason content up on the channel. And I hope that you guys enjoyed the Super Bowl as much as I did, because I certainly enjoyed it. I'm still waiting. I'm still looking at the end zone. I'm still waiting for that Jalen Hurts Hail Mary to land. I mean, what did that come up, about 25 yards short? I'm still waiting for that to land, but that was a great Super Bowl. I had a lot of fun watching it. It was an absolute blast, and the score is still 4-1 as the New York Giants are getting ready for what is a very important offseason, one of their most important. And I know I say this every offseason, but it's how I feel. I'm a fan. One of their most important offseasons in a very long time. Joe Schoen is going to be presented with a critical decision. Does he push forward with Daniel Jones? Does he push forward with Saquon Barkley? What are the contracts going to be? And we got our first bit of really good news today. Today we found out that the New York Giants are going to bring back what I feel at this point in time is the best coaching staff in the division. And I don't think that's crazy to say. Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year this past year, right? Now they bring back Wink. They bring back Kafka. The Eagles lose both of their coordinators today to head coaching jobs. And I understand they have a good coaching staff all around. They have one of the best offensive line coaches in football. Sirianni, as much of a jackass as he is, has done a great job so far as the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Giants keep everything intact. And for the first time in Daniel Jones's career, he's coming back for second year in an offense with a modern-day play caller. So I think that's valuable. So I'm really excited to see what they could build upon off of last year, getting Wink back with the defense as well. Hopefully we could add some pieces. We all know the needs of this team going into the offseason on both sides of the ball. On defense, obviously you need a lot of help in that linebacker room. There's no doubt about it. Could use some more depth on the defensive line. Definitely could use some more depth on the offensive line as well. But we got to get a corner too, and I'm excited to see what they could do on both sides of the ball going into the offseason. I think it's going to be a really fun year, and I think the Giants are going to be a much better football team next year. The schedule is going to be more challenging, so the record may not be that much better. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm really excited to see what this team could build into year two of the Brian Daboll regime. And getting our two coaches back today, I think, is huge. I wasn't going to panic if we lost Mike Kafka. I said that on Twitter countless times because I do think Brian Daboll was the major reason why I wanted Brian Daboll to be hired to begin with. It's why I thought that we needed to hire an offensive coach. When we made that move, because you want to be able to develop a young quarterback, whether that's Daniel Jones or potentially a guy who may replace him in the near future. So I wasn't going to panic because I think Brian Daboll has a lot to do with the offense this past year and with what the offense is going to be. And if this offense continues to evolve, Mike Kafka is eventually going to land a job. That's what happens to good coaching staffs and teams that are run properly. So I wouldn't have panicked if we lost Kafka, but it wouldn't have been ideal. You would have had Daniel Jones with another man in his ear for another year, having to learn plays from another play caller. So it's ideal that Kafka is coming back. He did a tremendous job last year. I think a lot of Giants fans last year kind of rode Kafka a little bit harder than they probably should have at times. The Giants last year, they went from probably the worst offense in football the previous year with Garrett to a middle-of-the-road offense. Look at the stats. I think we were 17th in yards and 15th in points, or right around that area. We were top, I think, 5 or 6 in red zone offense, and the offense got progressively better over the course of the year, regardless of the defenses we were going up against. Like, I love how people like to make that argument when they talk about the Giants offense last year. Oh, well, they only did it against this defense, and oh, they only did it against this defense. Tell me a defense. I don't care if it would have been a high school defense under Joe Judge and Jason Garrett, that the offense looked good. So the offense certainly got a lot better last year, specifically in the red zone. We also got we had our ebbs and flows in terms of third down efficiency, but the red zone offense was much better, and you really start to see that. You started to see them open up the playbook as the year progressed. So I'm really excited to see what this offense could be going into year two with Kafka, with Daniel Jones having another year to build from within the offense. So really, really excited for this upcoming offseason. But thank you to everybody for being here. Appreciate all you guys. Just took a bit of a break. Like I said, man, the new job's been bogging me down, and I wanted to take a break as the offseason approached, and I know we're going to have a ton of content. I'm going to try to go live at least once a week with you guys, do hangouts during the week. Probably more than that as the offseason starts to heat up. As free agency approaches, I'm sure I'll be live at least once or twice during that stretch when I can after work. I do work from home, so I could be on here by about 4:30, 5 o'clock if there's major news with free agency throughout the day. Obviously, you're going to have the combine. Things are going to heat up with the NFL draft with that. So the offseason is really going to start to heat up. But I think our offseason, this is different than previous offseasons where it starts with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Since I've been on YouTube, we have not had as big of a decision as the New York Giants currently have in free agency. So I think that's where it starts. I think, and from that, the dominoes are going to fall. And we're going to see what this New York Giants team is going to be going into 2023, how they're going to build the roster. But, to really try to project what I think they could do in free agency, I got to see what these contracts are like and who's coming back and who's not from this roster. So really excited to see how that's going. I know that there's been reports that now the Giants and Daniel Jones are talking. There's been reports that Saquon Barkley and the Giants are talking. I'll give my thought process throughout the stream. I'm sure you guys all have a lot of questions, but really excited to get the offseason underway. What's going on, Jai? What's going on, Tony, man? What's going on, Big Moo? Can the team start signing players? Free agency doesn't start until March. I think it's late March. It's mid to late March. So that's when free agency starts. The draft starts, obviously, in late April. So that's when it all starts. Well, the Giants just signed Cager, but in terms of like high-profile free agents, that's not gonna kickstart until March. The Giants could re-sign Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley any minute if they wanted to. But in terms of acquiring outside free agents from other teams, that starts in mid-March. What's going on, Afghanistan? What's going on there? Cy Guy, man, thanks for popping in. What's going on there, Nick the Wick? What's going on, Max on the beat, man? Thanks for popping in. Thanks to everybody for being here. Hope you guys had a great day. Thank you guys for being the best supporters on YouTube. Let me read a couple of these real quick. Stefan says, I love DJ. I do. But, spelt with 2 T's. He's talking about Daniel Jones' butt. Is the money he's asking for realistic after one great season? I want him back, but is he asking for too much? Thoughts, bro? We need a wide receiver. Listen, I'm going to be consistent with my views on Daniel Jones, and I've been fighting people tooth and nail on Twitter all year, and I'm not going to back off my opinion. When I believe in something, I'm going to say it. And I think a lot of people don't realize what the quarterback market is. People hear $33, $34 million, and they say, that's insane. That's crazy. The salary cap goes up every year. Right now, the top paid quarterbacks make $50 million, $48, $49, $50 million. Those are what franchise quarterbacks get paid. Meaning next year, when the market goes up by 8%, the top paid quarterbacks like a Jalen Hurts, who's going to get a big contract. Thank God. Thank God. Since he won a Super Bowl. So he's going to get $52, $53, $54 million a year. $30 million, $32, $33 million for a quarterback. That's not franchise quarterback money in today's market. That's starting quarterback money. I know that a lot of people here, they're like, are you crazy? But that's the truth. And I think the Giants could structure the contract, as I've said all along, in a way where it's not going to be nearly as damaging as a lot of fans are making it out to be. I'm not saying sign the guy to a 5-year deal where you can't get out of it after 4 years. I don't think the Giants are going to do that. I think if Daniel Jones' agent's demands are like 5 years, $200 million, they're going to say, all right, Jones, we're going to tag you, and you're going to have to prove it again. But I think they want to meet in the middle ground because obviously it's a disadvantage to franchise tag Daniel Jones because then you can't move that money around. Then it's 32. I think it's $32.4 million fully committed to the cap where you can't move it around. So in an ideal world, yeah, I think the Giants are probably going to try to get a deal done in the ballpark. And I'm just guessing of, I don't know, 3 for 100, 4 for 130 in that ballpark where they could move the money around. And if things go south after 2 years, they could get out of it. Maybe 3 years. But even if it's a 3-year out, you can still draft a quarterback after 2 years. Much like when they had Eli Manning, right? And they drafted Daniel Jones. So I think that's going to be the outlook. I think that's what they're going to try to do. And a lot of people hear the money. It's in today's day and age, I know it sounds like a lot. Quarterbacks make double that almost. Sebastian says, hey, Dana, had a cool experience with a Giants fan. Used to watch them back in the late 70s to 80s with LT. He gave me a yellow Meadowlands jacket that the people worked at the stadium used to wear. Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome, man. Congratulations, dude. Cool experience with a Giants fan. I used to watch the team back in the late 70s, 80s with LT. Give me a yellow Meadowlands jacket. Wow. That's cool, Sebastian, man. That's awesome, man. Thanks for popping in, buddy. MY Giants 26 says, I'm not high on Sirianni because besides being an Eagles, he had the best roster in football and blew a 10-point lead, 26-1. I'm not going to knock Sirianni at the end of the day. I mean, I hate him. You know, we all hated what he did with the whole meme thing when they played the Giants. Nick Sirianni, how did it feel to lose a double-digit lead in the second half of the Super Bowl? Somebody posted this on Twitter. You loved it, Nick? We all hated the Nick Sirianni meme when he did it to the New York Giants. But listen, at the end of the day, I got to give the guy credit. I mean, he came into an Eagles team the previous year, much like Dable did this year with the Giants, that many people were writing off, myself included, that nobody thought was going to make the playoffs. He made the playoffs. And this second year, he took him to the Super Bowl. So I hate the guy, but I got to give him some props. I mean, he took a team to a Super Bowl. I understand the Eagles have a ton of talent. And I can't wait till we start beating the Eagles, hopefully in the near future. But he's done a good job, a very good job so far with the Eagles. I'm not going to kill him. Ethan says the Giants could still cut Kenny Golladay, right? If the Raiders cut Carr because he has all the guaranteed money, didn't know if it was the same with Kenny. Yeah, so Carr got cut today. Carr's going to sign. I think Carr. You want to pay if you're trying to project what Daniel Jones's contract is going to be. And again, the Giants could definitely franchise tag him. But if you're trying to project what Daniel Jones's market is going to be, you want to see what Derek Carr signs for. Because I think that's about what Daniel Jones's market is going to be. Daniel Jones is younger. I know Carr has had some success from within the league, more production from within the league, even though this past year I could certainly argue Daniel Jones had a better year than Derek Carr this past year. Derek Carr took a Raiders team that most people thought were a near Super Bowl contender. They won 6 games. He got benched his last 2 games, and then he got cut. I think he had a QB rating of like 86, had 14 interceptions and 15 starts. And look at the weapons the guy was throwing to, right? Between Waller and obviously Adams, Jacobs in the backfield. Like, he's got weapons all over the place. And, I think they brought in a new head coach, so that probably has something to do with him falling off a bit. But regardless, I think what Carr signs for is around, like, if I'm Daniel Jones's agent, that's probably where I'm going to value my client, because Carr is 7 years older. Jones is still ascending. He won a playoff game, right? He showed progression throughout the year. So I think what Carr signs for, that's probably going to be near the asking price of what Daniel Jones is going to be looking for from the New York Giants, or if the New York Giants pass on him. That's my take, at least on the Carr situation. But as far as your question goes about Kenny Golladay, the Giants they will cut Kenny Golladay. The only question with Kenny Golladay is when they're going to cut him. If you cut him after June 1st, you save yourself an extra, I think it's $6.7 million towards this year's cap. You still got to pay the dead cap, as I say all the time, because they split that up year over year. But the benefit to that is the cap goes up. So $6.7 million against the cap in 2024 is not quite as bad as $6.7 million against the cap this year, right? Because it's a little bit less of a percentage. If the salary cap this year is, I think it's like 220, somewhere in that ballpark. If the next year is 240, 245, 6.7 is not quite as bad. And obviously you could use that extra $6.7 million to, help pay for this year's draft class. I think that would be the game plan if they went that route. And we'll see if that's ultimately what they decide to do. But that's the only question with Golladay. There's no way we're bringing him back. He's certainly going to be cut. And there's some other decisions they're going to have to make. Maybe they extend Leonard Williams to try to alleviate some of the cap pressure that way. I don't think they're going to cut him because you only save $12 million. And I don't think you're going to find a player as good as Leonard Williams for $12 million. Diego says, sign David Long, draft Addison. Big fan of Addison. Get Tyreek Stevenson in the second round and bring back Jones and Barkley, and we win the whole thing next year. Relax. Relax. Listen, man, I would love Addison. And again, it's way too early in the process. I don't think Addison's getting to where we're picking. You look at some of these wide receivers, and I haven't done a deep dive into them yet. That's another thing I'm going to be doing on the channel. I'm going to be having a guy on the channel who, looks at college prospects. We'll be doing some, amateur film breakdowns, but I'm looking forward to doing it with him, and we'll go over some of the prospects from within college, and we'll certainly be looking at wide receivers and cornerbacks and everything else. But I've looked at the wide receivers is what I've really been looking at, and the cornerbacks. The wide receiver crop this year, to me, I don't see any dominant wide receivers personally that are at least going to get to where the New York Giants are picking. And to me, Addison is one of the better ones. If I was doing a mock today, and I'll probably be doing a mock at the end of the week, probably a full first-round mock, and then I'll do a Giants-specific mock later the next week where I do a 7-round mock draft. I don't see Addison dropping in the New York Giants. I'd be very surprised, but yeah, he's a really good prospect. I'd be very happy if we landed him. Little says, missed you. Like all your fans, up you the best. I appreciate it, Robbie, man. Thanks so much. Thank you to everybody for being here. If you haven't done so, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell. And Survivor Sam, man, thanks so much for the $2 donation. I appreciate it, buddy. And let's see. Joshua, what's going on, man? I love Barkley, but something to consider is the teams that won Super Bowls over the last several years have not had a high-paid running back on the team, and that's 100% fair, and that's 100% accurate. I think this is something I think a lot of people don't consider when they think about Saquon Barkley. And let's like take away like the locker room stuff and how good of a guy he is and how he's a true Giant, because I understand you need to produce. It's a position that, like you said, traditionally speaking, you could find talent at that position in the 4th or 5th round. I get the argument. But I think one thing like that I think about with Saquon Barkley, outside of all of that, if you let him go, you're going to get like a 3rd-round comp pick. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get very little. You're going to get a 3rd-round comp pick. If you sign him, and say the team goes south this year, but Saquon Barkley's playing well, much like last year. If you sign him to a franchise tag, or if you sign him to a 3-year contract with a 2-year out, you could pivot off of him. We saw with Christian McCaffrey this year. They were able to trade him. If Barkley produced, I feel like Shane, just because he signs Barkley doesn't necessarily mean he can't change the direction of this football team if things go south next year, or if they go south the year after that. And there's a price that he could get for Saquon Barkley. So I don't see a scenario where Joe Shane is just going to let Saquon Barkley walk out the door. I don't see it. I think it's very possible we could franchise tag him, if they can't work out a deal. But and me and Patricia Traina talked about this before. I've gone on her show several times. As I've said with her and on my channel too, I don't think they want to franchise tag Saquon Barkley, and I think it's precisely the reason why they went to Saquon Barkley at the bye. A lot of people said, oh, well, they're not talking to Daniel Jones. That means they're not interested in Daniel Jones. No, I think they went to Saquon Barkley at the bye in hopes that they could sign him without having to utilize the franchise tag so they could have more bargaining power when it comes to their negotiations with Daniel Jones. Because if they have to use the franchise tag on Saquon Barkley, they can no longer use that as a tool to say to Daniel Jones' agent, well, if you're asking for $40 million a year, I could just tag you. If you tag Saquon Barkley, you can no longer do that. So I think the Giants are trying to sign Saquon Barkley so they can use the tag as a bargaining chip for Daniel Jones, who is a threat to make a lot more money, being that he's a quarterback. So that's what I think their plan's been all along. Whether or not they're able to sign Saquon Barkley to a 3 or 4 year deal that makes sense for Joe Shane, that remains to be seen. But I don't think they're going to let Saquon Barkley just walk out the door. I really don't. I'd be very surprised. I'm very surprised. MY Giants 26 says 35 to 37 million for Jones, and I'm happy get it done. I'm hoping for less, but I understand that that's probably what his market is. But of course, as a fan, no offense to you, Daniel, but as a fan, the less the better, within reason. I don't want him to make $40 million because I understand the argument that it hurts the cap. But realistically speaking, looking at the market, if you're Daniel Jones, what's your incentive to sign a contract for under $30 million, $31 million a year? What's your incentive other than out of the kindness of your heart? Because if you just sit there and force them to tag you, you're going to make $32 million fully guaranteed. So, and I think he knows the New York Giants would do that if push came to shove. Because if you're being honest with yourself, even if you don't like Daniel Jones, it only takes one team. And there's a lot of teams that are out there that are hungry for quarterbacks. And one team, I guarantee it, if he hit free agency, would be willing to give him a lot more than $30 million a year. I guarantee it. And the Giants know that. And that's why they would tag him if push came to shove, if they couldn't get a deal done before the deadline, which is exactly why I don't see Daniel Jones signing a contract for under $31 million a year, that tag number. So why I think it's going to be between 31 to 35. That's on a per year average basis. That's what I think it's going to be. Brady says, if DJ had a number one wide receiver, would he have been in the Super Bowl? Thoughts? With this team, no. This team still has a lot of holes, all right? They still have probably the worst linebacking core in football. Daniel Jones not having a number one wide receiver had nothing to do with why we got destroyed against the Philadelphia Eagles. Nothing to do with it. And had we played a healthy San Francisco 49ers team, it would have been a very similar outcome. All you have to do is look at the games we played against the Dallas Cowboys this year and the Philadelphia Eagles. And, of course, having a number one wide receiver is going to help this offense. We all know that. we got destroyed up front on both sides of the ball. Both times we played the Eagles, all three times we played the Philadelphia, all three times we played the Eagles, and both times we played the Dallas Cowboys. And until such time we're able to at least stand our ground, we're not going to be able to beat these teams consistently. So, no, if he had a number one wide receiver, we still would have gotten destroyed against the Eagles because our offensive line can't block against their pass rushers, and our pass rushers can't get after their quarterback. The Eagles have one of the best offensive lines in football, and the same could be said for the Dallas Cowboys. So the Giants obviously have to get much better in the trenches still. And and hopefully have a Neil Groves year too, and hopefully we get, some more improvement on the interior, and hopefully we get more depth on our defensive line. Yes, I know obviously Dexter Lawrence had a great year. Leonard Williams is talented, but you look at that Eagles team. I mean, they go 5-6 deep on that defensive line, right? Like I think we need a true nose tackle in the middle, and obviously we need some help with our linebacking core. But yeah, I don't think the reason we got killed against the Eagles was because we didn't have a number one wide receiver. I think it's because we got killed up at the point of attack. So no, I don't think if Daniel Jones had Brandon Ayuk, I know he's like a popular name that people have talked. No, we don't. We still lose to the Eagles. NY Giants 26 says we need Terrence. That's who I want. Yeah, I've seen people talk about him as well. I'll be doing more research on these guys as the offseason gets going. Gabe says, Tana, how is the best way to contact you to be a guest on my podcast? I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, Gabe. If you do, that's always the best way because if I follow you, if not at me and I'll follow you back, you could always send me a direct message, and I try to go on everybody's podcast whenever anybody asks. Fisher says, I have a feeling Dable and Shane join your stream and take notes like the guys knows his stuff. I doubt that, but listen, let's see if they take notes. This is what I think they are going to do this offseason. I'm not going to give you exact names. This is what I think they're going to do. I don't know if they're going to have to use the tag. If they use the tag, I think they're going to end up trying to get a contract done with Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley before the year starts. But I think Jones and Barkley will both be back with the Giants in 2023. I think they'll structure Daniel Jones's deal where it could give them enough money in year one to be able to make some moves to help out this year's roster. They're not going to overspend in free agency, but maybe they sign a starting linebacker. I don't know who it may be, but maybe a linebacker in that $8 to $10 million range. Maybe they get a decent wide receiver for $7-8 million, and then they get some depth on the offensive and defensive line. I don't expect any major, gigantic splashes in free agency, but that's what I think they're going to do. I don't think Love will be back if I had to guess. But it all comes down to his market. If he's willing to come back on a more team-friendly deal than what I think his value would be on the open market, yeah, it definitely could come back, and I hope he is back. But I'm not going to give him $10 million a year when I still may potentially have to pay Xavier McKinney. How much money are you going to dedicate to the safety position? But I think Jones and Barkley will be back. I think we will sign a linebacker in free agency. And I think we will sign a wide receiver. I just don't think we're going to sign the highest of end wide receivers, but we need to fill out this roster. So I think we will get a decent wide receiver in free agency. And then in the draft, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I think they're going to go BPA. But when you look at the value of the draft for pick 25, I think right now it looks like a cornerback for me. That's where I'm leaning that they'd go. But my opinion may change as the draft progresses. Harrison, stand up! New member. Welcome to the squad, Harrison, man. I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for being here, man. Let's take a quick look. And wide receiver obviously could be a possibility in the draft. And we also could trade for a wide receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that if the right deal presented itself. VM says, don't post this. I dropped out of bed, kept you because you were first times I get posted. I watch the TV. You are a talent. Be well. Imp, man, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys for all the support you always show, man. And thanks for being here, Imp, man. I appreciate it, man. I remember you got upset the night of the draft, and you had a right to be upset when we traded down and ended up with Kadarius Toney. That was not a good move. Obviously, in terms of value for the trade, sure, but when you saw how everything played out. Dylan is cool, says, Tana, have you checked out the center out of Minnesota? I have. I think I heard he has only given up 2 sacks his entire college career. Yeah, he's been getting a lot of praise. That's the dude from the Senior Bowl, right? If I'm not mistaken. And yes, I've heard about him. I checked out one highlight film on him because I kept seeing people, rave about him on Twitter recently. And he's a guy that's creeping up draft boards. Obviously, you got the dude. I don't know why the names escape me off the top of my head, but the dude from Florida, he's going to go first round. I think he was at the Senior Bowl too, if I'm not mistaken. But the interior offensive lineman from Florida, who's a monster, he's a guard. He's a first-round potential guy that the Giants could be looking at if they want to go that route. But yes, I have heard about him. Yes, he's been getting a lot of praise recently. Jay says, how do you feel about a Jamel Dean signing? Let me take a look at his age. Still young. It's going to be 27. 26 at the start of next year. Will be 27. It's possible. I really think we're gonna attack cornerback in the draft, though. I really do. I think we're gonna take a cornerback in the first round this year. Maybe I'll be wrong. And I also don't know what Jamel Dean's market would be. He had a pretty good year last year for the Bucs, just looking at his metrics. So I don't know what his market would be, but if his market is anywhere in the $10 million range plus, I don't think we're going to spend that. I think we would sooner just draft one in the first round. So I don't expect it might be a linebacker, but I don't expect the New York Giants to spend big bucks at the wide receiver or cornerback position in free agency this year. I just don't. I think we'll sooner draft a corner in the first round rather than sign one. But maybe I'll be wrong. Jason, man, what's going on, man? And he says, I know the draft is early, but check on Drew. I've seen Drew Sanders. He's versatile. He could play both off the edge, up the middle. A lot of people project it better to be an edge, actually, than a middle linebacker. But yeah, I've watched him a bit. Gives me Kuechly vibes. I think you'll like his tape and can rush too. Yeah, you just said it there. Yeah, a lot of people feel like he could be a guy that plays off the edge as well. Not that I'm comparing him, but Parsons, right, was that type of prospect that could play both off the edge, play up the middle. So yeah, I've watched him a bit. And I've seen some people mocking him to go mid-first round. So, yeah, he's definitely a guy that's a possibility for the Giants. If he falls to 25, we could be looking at linebacker for sure. I still don't think we're taking linebacker, though. If I had to guess, I think we're going corner. And I know a lot of Giants fans aren't going to want to hear that. We may go wide receiver. But and that's just how I feel today. I got to see what we do leading up into the draft. Do we trade for a wide receiver? Maybe we don't even have that first-round pick. Maybe we do trade for the dream that everybody talks about with Brandon Ayuk, and we don't even have a first-round pick, right? So let me see the offseason play out before I come to a full conclusion on what I think they're going to do. But just based off of value and the strength of this year's draft and what I think Wink wants to prioritize on the defense, I think they're going to want to have a strong corner opposite of Adoree Jackson, and a guy that may ultimately replace Adoree Jackson, right? Jackson's only under contract next year. So I'm leaning they're going to go corner in the first round, even though I wouldn't be surprised if they went linebacker, interior offensive line, or wide receiver. But that's where I'm leaning right now. Xerox says, evening, buddy. Cheers for a great season. Looking forward to the draft. Xerox, man, thanks so much, man. Dude, it was a great year. Next year's going to be even more fun. All right? We're going to get Daniel Jones. Think about this, man. I'm excited. I'm super excited for next year. You get the whole coaching staff back today. You find that out today. You get Daniel Jones back in the same offense here too. To me, if you ask me, Chris, who's the player that's going to take the biggest jump next year? It's probably Kayvon or Evan Neal. But after that, I think it's Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones, year two in the same offense with more help, because he can't have less help. They're going to get better wide receivers. It can't get much worse. And just being more experienced with Kafka and Dable and Evan Neal, who I think is going to get better. Daniel Jones, man, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Daniel Jones could be in 2023. I really am, especially after we got Kafka back, man. I can't wait for next year. I'm super excited about it. Diego says the best value pick this year is corner. Yeah, I agree. I think that's why I think that's what we're going to do. If I had to do a mock today, and I'll be doing one on Friday or Saturday, that's where my head's at in the first round right now. I think it's corner, but it could be a variety of things. It's not like I think like it's a lock, but that's where I'm leaning right now. Tudo says, massive salutes and respects to Big Boss Stain and all the dire Giants fans in the building from Princeton, Jersey. And please slap all the boys losers out the door. Hard. What's going on, Tudo, man? Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well, buddy. And Duncan says, we better trade up for Quentin Johnson before we trade for someone else's bill in Higgins or Ayuk. He looks about as good as as good, and I get him cheap for 5 years. I mean, listen, Duncan, if they feel that Quentin Johnson is going to be a top 5 receiver, top 8, 9, 10 receiver, which is what they would probably be projecting Ayuk or Higgins to be if they're willing to trade a first-round pick to get him. Sure. People feel different. I like Quentin Johnson. There's a couple of knocks on him. People talk about his hands. He doesn't have the best of hands. But to me, and again, we'll see. It's not like I've watched his film breakdowns, but I've watched like 4 TCU games. He's impressive to me. He's tall. He's fast. He could go up and catch the 50-50. Yeah, I like Quentin Johnson. I don't think he's getting to us, and I think you'd have to trade up to get him. And I think it would come down to the price and where he may fall from within the draft. But I don't think he's getting to 25, and we'd have to trade up to get him. I don't think we're going to trade up. I don't. But listen, if they feel he could be an incredible receiver, they might. It wouldn't shock me. Pencilman says, nice to see you back, and let's get to the draft. Can't wait to get your thoughts on the direction the Giants should go. Yeah, man, I can't wait to talk about the Giants. Also, obviously, throughout the developments of the offseason between free agency and the Jones and Barkley contract, getting to break that down with you guys and, talking about – I'm excited to see the contracts. I am, because I do think they're coming back. I'm excited to see the contracts because that's when, we could all think as fans, okay, what's the direction of this team? What are they going to do? What can they do to build the rest of this team in free agency? How much of a commitment is it with Daniel Jones, right? So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Joe Schoen and Daniel Jones ultimately come up with, because at this point, I think most fans agree, outside of the stubborn fans. I think most fans agree that Daniel Jones is going to be back. It's just a matter of in what capacity. And I think Saquon's going to be back too, if I had to guess, but I think Jones is more of a sure thing. So that's the first thing I'm excited about. And then obviously I'm excited to dive into free agency and the draft and everything else in the forward direction of this football team. What's up, James, man? Thanks for popping in. You like JSN? I think a lot of people do. Obviously he's injury prone, but I think a lot of people do. Let's see. But Christian Gonzalez, yeah, he's another name I've seen mocked in the second round area. I've seen mainly Eric. Do I think Smith? He might be. I mean, a lot of this is going to depend on their combine and how they look at their workouts. Obviously, he had an injury this year. He could be. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he fell. Right? It's all going to depend on what teams need in front of us and how they look at their combines and their workouts and everything else. I'm leaning he won't be because it's a thin wide receiver draft, but I wouldn't be shocked if he fell to the late first round. No, there's definitely no Jamar Chase guys in this draft. What's up, Ryan? He says, let's go, Tainer. Nice to see you again. What's going on, man? Thanks for popping in, man. Hyatt's good, too, out of Tennessee. Yeah, I like him. What's up, Lee, man? Thanks for popping in. Tony says, Dave said they're in talks with DJ's people, so I think we could see a contract being done in a couple of weeks. Yeah, Tony, listen, I don't think either side's going to show their hand because at the end of the day, it's still business. They're still bargaining. They're still trying to deal from a position of power. So I don't think either side is just going to, tilt their hand, and I think that it's going to be a bit of a back and forth, but in the end, I think they're going to come to a mutual agreement. The only question is, what's the dollar amount going to be? I don't think Daniel Jones, to me, seems like the type of guy that is going to hold the New York Giants over a barrel to get every last penny. But hey, you never know. That's what Dak Prescott did to the Dallas Cowboys. And to be honest with you, not that I want him to, because I don't. I want to get Daniel Jones back for $10 a year if I could. The lesser, the better. It helps the team, right? As a fan, I'm not saying Daniel Jones doesn't deserve to get paid whatever he gets paid. Kudos to him, whatever he gets paid, whatever Saquon Barkley gets paid, kudos to them. But think about it from the perspective of Daniel Jones. I think as fans, a lot of times we're guilty of thinking about it just from the perspective of the fan and just from the perspective of what's from the, for the betterment of the team, which I do that too. But think about it from the perspective of Daniel Jones. If you're DJ, are you going to go out of your way, unless you're like a saint, to leave money on the table? I mean, he's been the punching bag of this city since he's been here. And he's been provided with nothing. And he knows that there's about 5 quarterback needy teams, if he hits free agency, that are going to be willing to pay him. Jets, Bucks, right? Falcons potentially. I'm sure there's like two or three other teams I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. So he knows there's going to be a market for him. He knows that if he comes back here, it's going to come with added pressure. He's going to get paid, and he's going to want to get paid. Let's see what we got. Matt says Giants plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl next year. One of these years, my $2 bets will pay off. Well, what would that pay? I think that's 400 to 1, right? When it says plus 4,000, so that'd be $800. That'd be nice. Those aren't bad odds if I'm right. Maybe that's 40. That might be 40 to 1. Somebody in the chat let me know. I think that's 40 to 1. I don't think that's 4. There's no way it's 400 to 1. Because the long shots when the Super Bowl usually kicks off before the season starts, usually like 80 or 100 to 1. So that's probably 40 to 1. You still win $80. Hopefully they win. Blue Collar says, Tana, wide receivers are flush in this draft. I think we have to gamble on a number one wide receiver in the draft, then go inside linebacker, guard, cornerback. When is Tana getting hired by SO? I hope, man, that'd be great. $5 wins 200. Yeah, so that would be 40 to 1. Yeah, 5 times 40 is 200. As far as the wide receivers go, from what I've gathered and from what I've seen, there's not like, and again, every draft people say this, and every wide receiver is one of the positions where, people say this all the time about running back. You could say the same thing about wide receivers because I've done videos about this in the past. You look at all the top wide receivers in the league, a lot of these wide receivers go second, third, fourth round. I think Justin Jefferson was a second-round pick, right? Tyreek Hill was like a fifth-round pick. You could find value at that position. There's no doubt about it. So I guarantee you there's going to be at least 2 or 3 wide receivers in this draft that a lot of people did not expect to be an incredible wide receiver that end up being one. But the book on this draft going in is that it's a pretty deep wide receiver draft, but it's not top-heavy. Like, there's not a lot of, like, number ones in this draft, as opposed to, like, the previous drafts when they had Jalen Waddle and when they had Jamar Chase and when, and Devontae Smith. It's not as loaded at the top end of this draft. It's a relatively deep draft at the position, but it's not super top-heavy. That's what most people feel about it. Let's see what we got. Tuto, what's going on, man? Tana, me and 19 of my rugby club teammates were at the Super Bowl. 6 of them got arrested and canned for beating up the birds, but they were all released after 6 hours, but none of the witnesses and victims. That's right. You always go to Philadelphia. Well, it wasn't in Philadelphia. It was in Arizona, but I'm glad. I'm glad that you didn't end up in jail, Tuto. And I'm sure you enjoyed yourself with the Eagles losing. Caesar says Johnson and Zay are the only ones worth taking at 25. I don't think Johnson's getting to 25. Zay's a guy that a lot of people like. I think that's the kid out of Boston College. I think it's Boston College. I've seen highlights on him, and I do think he'd be a good fit in our scheme. I've seen a lot of people bring him up. I like Addison, too. You didn't mention him. I do like Jordan Addison, but I don't think he's going to be there at 25 either. Let's see what we got. James, he says, I really hate the Eagles, especially after the middle finger to the Chiefs. Your thoughts about the Eagles coach doing that? Oh, is that what he did, James? I saw the video. I didn't realize he put up the middle finger. You're talking about the video where they showed Jalen Hurts put his coach's hand down. I thought, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did put up the middle finger. I thought what he was doing, because if I recall in that play, it was a challenge, and I think they originally called it a catch. I think that was the throw to Devontae Smith, which was like identical, if you recall, against the 49ers the week before or 2 weeks before in the NFC Championship game where the 49ers elected not to challenge it. It was like identical. It was basically the same play, and the Chiefs defense went, they went back to the original line of scrimmage because they're like, this is going to get overturned. And I thought that was Sirianni saying, come on back. This isn't getting overturned. That's what I thought it was. I don't think he put up his middle finger, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did put up his middle finger. Yeah, he was waving them back. Yeah. That's what I thought he was doing. I don't think he put up his... But listen, if you want to think that, go ahead. I hate Sirianni. What's up, Christopher Ewing, man? Thanks for popping in, man. Let's see. Am I the only one not sold on... are you kidding me? Are you on Twitter, Gabriel? No, you're definitely not the only one not sold on Daniel Jones. There are plenty of people that are not sold on Daniel Jones. Hell, Gabriel, I'm not sold on Daniel Jones. Like, what's your definition of sold on Daniel Jones? I'm sold on Daniel Jones to be the quarterback in 2023. I'm sold on being okay with Daniel Jones being the quarterback probably until 2025 as we build this team. I'm not sold on Daniel Jones quite yet. I need to see further development and further growth. I'm not sold on Daniel Jones as being the 15-year answer, franchise quarterback. I'm not sold on that yet. I need to see more evidence. So I don't know what your definition of sold is. I am sold on him being at a bare minimum a 2 or 3 year option for the Giants going forward and seeing what he could become as we start to improve this roster. That's what I'm sold on. Let's see what we got. And Joseph, man, thank you so much for the $2 donation, man. I appreciate it, buddy. And Muted Growl says, Tana, so glad we have you back, buddy. Been stuck watching these creators who make bashing DJ their whole brand. Can we expect some Knicks and Mets content as well? Glad. Yeah, so basically what happened, Muted Growl, with the Knicks, I came back for one Knicks game, and then I got killed with work. And I said to myself, I want to do the Knicks consistently. So when I do it, I want to do it consistently. So after the All-Star break, my plan, unless things get in the way here and there, is to do every Knicks game for the rest of the year, which is probably going to be, about 25 Knicks games? So that's what I want to do with the Knicks. I want to try to do every Knicks game for the rest of the year after the All-Star break. I always love doing the play-by-plays for the Knicks games. It's a lot of fun. So that's my plan. I want to do the Knicks games for the rest of the year. By the way, I know there's a Giants stream, and we're going to talk Giants all night. I love this Knicks team. I've been watching, I've probably watched like the last 20 games, 15 games straight, and I'm a big fan of this Knicks team. I love Jalen Brunson. I love the way this team is being built. To me, the Knicks are one piece away. They're one piece away. And it's a big piece. They need a big piece, but they're a really fun team to watch. They're definitely growing the right way. What's going on, Sean Johnson, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Dude was one away from the NFC East, and nobody is sold. Well, I mean, Slade, I'm sold on Daniel Jones as being the guy here for the next 3 years. I want him to get a 4-year contract. I mean, if that's not sold, I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not going to say I have blind faith in the guy as being here for the next 15 years. I need to see further growth. But I'm definitely sold on him getting a 4-year contract. And I think that's very fair. There's a lot of fans that are not willing to be sold on that. I think he proved himself this year. I think he deserves to get 2 or 3 more years to see what he could be with the New York Giants. I'm sold on that. I'm supporting the hell out of the guy. He's my favorite player in the team. If not, well, Saquon and him. I love both of them, but I'm all aboard the Daniel Jones train. But I got to be fair. I'm not going to blindly be like the guy's the 15-year answer. No, I got to see him produce further as we build up this team. Tana, can they tag Jones and then extend them if they work out a deal? Yeah, I think it's entirely possible they'll do that. Slade Runner says, my question is, who are they finding in the draft 5 years? Well, I mean, who knows? I'm just saying, Slade, I think as a good GM, you always want to keep your options open. Like, unless you have, like, Pat Mahomes, you always want to keep your options open. Like, what if Daniel Jones gets hurt in 2 years? Or what if Daniel Jones doesn't, reach a level that warrants giving him a 7-year, whatever the max deal for a contract would be for a quarterback then, right? So you always want to keep your options open. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But I definitely want to see him back here with the Giants, and I want to see what he could be. I want to see him continue to grow as the quarterback. And Big Moose says, when are you doing the salary cap with Patty? Patricia actually reached out to me on Twitter today. So I think she said next week. I don't know what day, but I think she said next week we're going to do like a live stream where we talk about the salary cap and like project what Daniel Jones's contract potentially could be and how they could structure it. You could, I mean, it's just for fun. Matter of fact, I could do it with you guys here. I've done it. I play around on breaks at work of like what they could do with the contract. So basically, like, I think it was like a week ago, I think it was a 4-year, $132 million contract. I did. Because I was trying to be realistic. I'm like, all right, that's about $33 million a year. That's right around the franchise tag number. He might get a little bit more than that, might get a little bit less. But I think it was like 4 years, 132, and I made about 70 or 80 million of it guaranteed. And the way that I structured the deal, it was only $14 million against the cap year one. And that's usually what they do with these quarterback contracts, right? Because you want to give yourselves the ability to build the team up a little bit, right? Before that contract accelerates, and you kind of want the contract to go up as the market goes up along with it, especially the quarterback contract. So I made it $14 million against the cap year one. I made it $30 million against the cap year two, which when you think about it, that's not that bad. The franchise tag this year is 32. Next year, it'll probably be 35, 36. So that's still well below the franchise tag. So it's 14 year one, 30 year two against the cap. The third year, it was 37 against the cap, which would probably be equivalent to what the franchise tag would be by then. Probably even still a little bit less as the franchise tag accelerates. And then the fourth year, I made it so you could get out after with only a $10 million hit. If, say, he gets hurt or regresses in play, or you want to move on, or you rip up the contract and you give him a bigger extension. I don't think that's a crazy contract. Like, people here 4 years, $135 million, blah, 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 blah. $14 million against the cap year one, $30 million against the cap year two, $37 million against the cap year three, $10 million out year four. And that's without adding void years, which you could do, which teams do. So I think it'll be a contract similar to that, where it gives them the ability to extend players like Dexter Lawrence, maybe keep a guy like Saquon Barkley. But I'm excited. I'm excited to do it with Patricia Traina and go over the specifics of how they could build a contract. Let's see what we got. MY Giants 26. No, I'm sorry. Max on the beat, man. What's going on, man? He says, if Jordan Addison falls to 20, would you trade up if you're Shane and get a potential wide receiver one who's a perfect fit? I mean, it all depends on how, obviously, he feels how he'll fit in the offense and everything else. But, yeah, I'm a fan of Addison. I like him. I think he's one of the more well-rounded wide receivers in this draft class, at least of what I've seen. I'm going to do film breakdowns. He's probably one of the with another guy who does this. He's probably going to be like one of the first 3 or 4 guys that I want to look into because I like him from what I've seen. I've watched a lot of USC games because I love their quarterback. I'm just a big fan. And he's a really good wide receiver. So I'm a fan of Addison. Yeah, I definitely want to move up 5 spots for a wide receiver like that for sure. It's not going to cost you a ton to move up from 25 to 20. You're probably talking about maybe 2 third-round picks or something like that. If you really like a wide receiver, as big of a need as it is for the New York Giants at that point, yeah, I'd make that move. Giants 26 says, can't say that Daves is a great head coach and DJ's not the guy. Why? Why can't you say it? What do you mean? I didn't say DJ's not the guy. I said DJ's the guy he's the guy for now, for the next 3 years. Let's keep building with him. Let's see what he could be. Yeah. Let's continue to see what Daves could do. Let's continue to see what Daniel Jones can do. Yeah. Why can't you say that? Let's see how they continue to develop together. But I'm excited. I'm excited for both of them. Not the guy for the next couple of years. Yeah, I agree. Joseph, man, thank you so much, man, for the $2 donation. I appreciate it. And David L says, Chris, happy you're back. This is for your this is for your Valentine, honey. That's right. I forgot today's Valentine's Day. So that tells you all you need to know. I don't got a Valentine, honey, because if I did, I wouldn't be doing this stream tonight. So I think, Valentine's Day, by the way, when I've had long-term girlfriends in the past and I'd go for Valentine's Day, Valentine's Day is the biggest bullshit holiday. And if you're a girl listening to this, and I'm sure you're not, because 99% of my audience is males or divorced males who leave their spouses because they hear my annoying voice over and over again. But if you're a female in this, don't take offense to this. Valentine's Day is the biggest nonsense holiday. People you go out to a fancy dinner, you go out to whatever, name the restaurant. You got to get a reservation 3 weeks in advance. You go there. The menu's like a quarter of what it normally is. You go there, they got 3 choices. Normally, when you go to the place, you could get 5 different types of steaks. You could get 4 different seafood options. You go there, you get 1 type of steak. It's like you're going to a wedding where you have a choice of 1 fish, one steak, 1 whatever, and you pay triple the price. And you're like this the whole time while you're eating. Valentine's Day is the biggest waste of money, and it's the stupidest holiday. Let's see what we got. And David, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. And Pencil Man says, Tana, which would you rather have, Tyreek Hill at $30 million or all of the Chiefs' current receivers for $29 million? Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's one of the top 3 receivers in the league. Tyreek Hill. There's a million Juju Smith-Schusters. Tyreek Hill. Not even close. Dennis, man, thank you very much, man. If the Texans don't like Quentin J, he will absolutely fall to the Giants. Addison J said Flowers. Jalen fit the Ravens. Chargers and Vikings more prey. It's funny you say that, Dennis, because I don't watch these mocks religiously yet. I start to get a lot more into them as kind of after free agency and after the combine where I really pay attention to all the mocks and start talking about them. But it's funny you say that. I've seen Quentin Johnston's been dropping a lot of these mocks, not quite to where the Giants are, but I've seen him drop into the very late teens, the early 20s. And maybe that'll be the case. Now, I don't know how well they're going to feel he fits our scheme, right? But listen, I'd be very happy with Quentin Johnston. I think he's tremendous. Dominic says, love your channel. And I've been following you for a while. Any advice for someone thinking about becoming a content creator? Thanks, bro. Stand up. Yeah, I mean, listen, the only advice that I ever give is just do it for fun, man. Just do whatever you do, whatever it's the Giants or whether it's talking about Valentine's Day reservations, whatever you do, make sure it's something that you love to do. That's the most important thing. And make sure that you always show as much appreciation as you can to your audience and the community that you're trying to build. Because at the end of the day, Dominic, without them, you're nothing. Let's be real. People mock people on YouTube. That's my favorite thing. People mock people on YouTube because they say, oh, he just does it for the views. Oh, he just does it for the views. No shit. Most people on YouTube, not to say I put out content that I feel is clickbait, because I can't stand that when I go on YouTube. But without an audience, why are you going on YouTube? Of course. So you're trying to build a community, and the most important thing that I think that you could do is try to be yourself and try to do something that you love and just show respect to your audience. And that's it, man. And just talk about something that you love. Try to be well informed. That's all I do. I don't know. Blue Collar says Washington and Dallas have ownership issues. Philly, I think, has cap issues. Giants are in the best position in the NFC East. I think Washington could be second. The Eagles, I still think the Eagles are going to be good next year. But yes, they have a ton of pending free agents, a ton. And when they pay Jalen Hurts, and we'll see how they structure that contract, but when they pay Jalen Hurts, it's going to affect their cap. And I think Jalen Hurts is going to get $55 million a year. People mock us for Daniel Jones at $33, $34 million a year. Jalen Hurts is going to get $55 million a year. And I don't care. Call me a homer. Call me whatever you want to call me. I don't care. I don't care about these Giants content creators and these Eagles fans that come in and say, oh, homer. I have eyes. Jalen Hurts is not a $55 million quarterback. He's not a $55 million quarterback. Jalen Hurts is in a golden situation. Golden. Go back, watch the Super Bowl. Drops back to pass. 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, 5 second, 6 second. Nobody's around him. Just standing there, scanning the field. He takes off the run. He's got a hole the size of the Grand Canyon. I am begging the Philadelphia Eagles to pay Jalen Hurts $55 million. Begging them to pay him $55 million. I will cry tears of joy when they pay him $55 million. So I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait till they pay him $55 million. But the Eagles are definitely in a good spot. They have a very, very good team. Obviously, they're really strong on both sides of the line. I don't think they're just going to fall off the map. I think the Cowboys, however, Moose, be good, man. I think the Cowboys, however, are trending towards starting to fall off. Dak is only going to get worse, in my opinion, as that team continues to deteriorate around him, as that offensive line gets a little bit older, as he gets a little bit older. I think I wouldn't be surprised if, depending on what we do this offseason and depending how our younger players develop, I wouldn't be surprised if by next year we're on, if not on par with the Dallas Cowboys, pretty close. I don't think we're close yet to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we're, and this is if everything pans out. This is if we draft well. This is if the players that we drafted last year continue to develop at a high rate. Probably at least 2 years away from catching the Philadelphia Eagles. But I wouldn't be surprised if we catch the Cowboys next year, or at least come very close to catching the Cowboys. As far as what you said about Washington is an interesting situation. I need to see what Washington does this offseason in regards to the quarterback position. I know they drafted, what's the guy's name again that they drafted late from North Carolina who played, somebody in the chat's going to tell me. He played the last game. He actually looked decent, at least from what I saw. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I definitely think Washington's going to be in the market for a quarterback. So I kind of have to see what they do, whether it be in the draft or whether it be, do they bring in a veteran, a stopgap guy? Sam Howell, there you go. He looked decent for them, but I don't think he's a guy that they're going to view as like the long-term answer. He's like a 5th-round pick or whatever he was. But Washington definitely has some, like, they have a nice foundation. Like, they have really good weapons. Their line, most people thought was really good, or at least pretty good going into last year. And that was kind of their biggest letdown last season. Obviously, we know they have talent on the defensive line. But Chase Young has not come close to living up to what they thought he could potentially be. Washington, I don't know, because I'm not a big Ron Rivera guy. I liked Rivera when he was available, and he was one of my 2 or 3 favorite coaching candidates that time around. Obviously, he probably would have been better than Joe Judge. Well, actually, what's funny about that Joe Judge coaching class, go back and look at it. The only one that's had any success is, what's his name? The dude, why am I forgetting? The dude on the Cowboys, the former Packers head coach. He's the only one that's had any success in that whole coaching search. All the other ones bombed. But I'm not the biggest Rivera guy. I'm just not. I'm not the biggest Rivera guy. I'm McCarthy, by the way. He's had success. But at the end of the day, look at what McCarthy inherited with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, my God, like who wouldn't have, done pretty well there. So that whole coaching search that year was just a bomb. So no matter who we took, whether it would have been Rule, who was a disgrace, or Rivera, it would have been a disaster. MY Giants 26 says, not you, Giants fans in general. My logic is that if Davis is a great head coach and he wants DJ back, that must speak volumes. He developed Allen. He knows talent. When he sees it, he has no ties to Jones. DJ proved another. Well, think about this, MY Giants 26. Think about this. And again, we got to wait to see what the contract is. They may franchise tag Daniel Jones. We got to wait to see what the contract is. But if the Giants sign Daniel Jones to, let's say 4 years, 130, right? That's like $32, $33 million a year. And let's say it's like a contract where it's like $80 million guaranteed, and they're making like a 3-year commitment to Daniel Jones. Let's say they do that. At that point in time, you would have had 2 different general managers, 3 different head coaches, and 4 different offensive coordinators that all showed belief in Daniel Jones. I mean, at that point, I think it's fair to at least say that, yeah, people that are paid to evaluate these players and people that, we have to at least give an opportunity to build their roster, believe he's a good quarterback. At the end of the day, I mean, right? So let's see what the contract is, though, and let's see what they end up paying Daniel Jones. But, yeah, obviously, if they give him that kind of contract, that's Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen saying, yeah, we believe in this kid. Octave says, let's go. Wink and Kafka are back. Our offseason started right. Hopefully, it stays that way. Yeah, it's been a great start to the offseason. It's a dream start. I think it's a start that most of us anticipated was going to happen when the season first ended. But at the end of the day, in today's world with like head coaches in the NFL, you never know, who's going to get a job, right? There's guys Joe Judge, we know it firsthand as New York Giants fans. He was a special teams coordinator. He was a wide receivers coach. Like, he was not a guy that had like these incredible credentials, right? So at the end of the day, I wouldn't have been surprised at all if Kafka got a head coaching job. Teams are always looking for the next up-and-coming, hotshot young coach. But as a Giants fan, I'm thrilled, right, that we got Kafka back, and I didn't think he would get a job, but I would have been much more surprised if Wink got one, because the trend in the NFL, for the most part, every once in a while, you'll see a young defensive coach, not that Wink's young, get a job. D'Amico Ryans with the Texans, obviously Saleh with the Jets a couple of years ago. But the overall trend is usually young offensive-minded head coaches, so much like we did with Brian Daboll. So if we were going to lose one, I thought it would be Kafka, but I didn't think we were going to lose either one when the offseason started, and I'm thrilled that they were back. I'm not going to lie to you. There was a point in time there, probably about 2 weeks ago, where I was like, we're going to lose Kafka, because every team was bringing him in for an interview. It wasn't one team. It wasn't 2 teams. It was like 5 teams. And I think teams around the league saw what he did, not just for Daniel Jones, but the overall offense. They said, my God, this was an offense that in 2021 was dead last. They were 32nd. They were the worst offense in football. I think they were 32nd in red zone offense, 31 the year before that. He had them like 6th in the league in the red zone. And they said, wow, man, this guy really did a lot with very little. You look at the wide receiver core, you factor in that Daniel Jones was learning a brand new offense. So I think that's why he was as looked upon as he was. But I'm thrilled that he's back. Don't get used to it, though. I think Kafka is going to be getting a job very soon. But the good news is when he does, I think Dable's going to be even more equipped to deal with it, right? Having 2 years with Daniel Jones, having 2 years with Tierney, if he still remains on with this coaching staff and other members of this coaching staff, and being able to come up with a plan to continue to build the offense that they've built 2 years in. So, but I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that Kafka's back. Buck Josh says, speaking of Valentine, I was driving with my wife to dinner. She straight up and looked at me. I smiled and said, yep, entertainer knows best. Let's go, Giants. Sorry, Buck, I didn't mean to get you in trouble with your wife. It's just the truth. Even she knows it. And listen, if I had a wife, I'd take her out for Valentine's Day. You're a good husband. Good for you. But we all know it, and they know it in the back of their head. It's a waste of time. You're spending triple the price to go to a restaurant where they sell a third of the menu. I mean, come on. And Caesar says, if an NFC East team takes Bijan, the running back, they will win the division. None of us could stop a nosebleed. If he falls to 25, I think we draft. I'm going to be honest with you, Caesar, and I may change my mind. I think, at least in my first mock, I'm going to have Robinson going to the Eagles. I think I'm going to have him going to the Eagles because I think the Eagles are going to lose Miles Sanders. He's a free agent. And Robinson, by all accounts, is he's not that he's quite Saquon Barkley as a prospect, but he's like that type of back. Like people view him as like a really, really high-end running back. And I look at a team like the Eagles, they're a Super Bowl ready team, right? They just went to the Super Bowl, and they look at a guy like Robinson as a guy that can make an immediate impact on their offense, right? You think about a really talented, near Saquon Barkley level talent running back being inserted into that offense with Jalen Hurts, with the offensive line they already possess. So I think if there's a team that's picking relatively early in the first round this year, they probably make the most sense because they're one of the most, if not the most complete overall roster. And they could kind of afford to take a running back relatively early. I'm leaning in my first mock. That's probably where I'm going to have him going. Let's see what we got. And John Letourneau. Stand up, Chris. My Phillies now, my Eagles. So go ahead and laugh. It's up. It's up. Silver lining. Gannon is gone. He hurts. Best in the NFC East. You the best. I appreciate you being here, John. And I'm not gonna lie to you, John. You know that I was thrilled. You know that I was thrilled when you guys lost. So yeah, I'm not even gonna say I'm sorry. I was happy. I can't hide the fact that I was happy that you guys lost. But you're a good guy. Always in the stream, showing support. As far, yeah, you know what's funny? Eagles fans seem to hate Gannon, and I don't know I don't know how you feel about him. Based off that comment, Silverline and Gannon is gone. I'm assuming you didn't like him either, and I know that the defense didn't perform very well in the playoffs. And I don't watch the Eagles as closely as you do, obviously. But you guys had one of the best defenses in football this year. You guys had almost 80 sacks. You almost broke the record. And I understand you have tons of talent on that defense, but I don't know. I'm a little bit surprised that Eagles fans disliked him as much as they did. But again, I don't watch the Eagles as much as you guys did. And to be fair to you guys, I heard it all year. I didn't hear it just after that Super Bowl. So I know Eagles fans weren't his biggest fans throughout the year, but you lost your offensive coordinator. I think a lot of Eagles fans are upset about that. And Raphael says, will you go to the parade if the Giants win it? Of course. If the Giants win it all, I'll be at the parade. I'll be first in line. I'll be next to license plate guy. Let's see what we got. Let's see. King Chris says, I want a cornerback, wide receiver, or linebacker first round, but after watch Dallas Goedert performance, if Addison, Simpson, Johnson, or Witherspoon I like. That's the cornerback, right? That's the dude from Illinois. I like him. That might be a hint, but I like him, King Chris TV. I like him. I got my eye on him in the first round if he falls. Desmond says, hope we get Miles Sanders if he's available. I don't think that'll happen. I think if we're going to spend money on a running back, I just think Saquon Barkley's coming back. If we're going to let Barkley go, I think you just draft his replacement. I don't think we're going to sign a high-profile running back in free agency if we don't bring Saquon Barkley back. Let's see. Julian Love. He says, you think I did enough to get re-signed, Chris? Julian Love, let's talk turkey. And thank you for popping into the stream. Let's talk turkey, Mr. Love. How much you asking for? Because at the end of the day, Julian, I love you. You're a captain of the team. You played like crap against the Eagles. Let's be honest, Julian. But overall, you're a captain of the team. You're a leader. You're a good football player. Good football player. You're capable of doing, multiple things on the field. You handle the media incredibly well. But at the end of the day, Mr. Love, I got to pay you, buddy. I got Xavier McKinney next to you, right? He's young. He's super talented. We invested an early second-round pick in the guy. Yes, he's got to stay off ATVs, but I think he fit our defense really well. So how much money are we going to dedicate to the safety position, Mr. Love? So if you're willing to come back here for, say, $7 million a year, maybe I'm pushing it, maybe 7.5, 8. That's probably where I'll top out. But if you want 10 or 11, Mr. Love, adios. We'll develop Dane Belton. We'll get our compensation pick, and we'll roll with what we got. So it depends on what you're willing to come back for. I got a walkaway price, as Mr. Shane says. James Kent says, why wouldn't you want Barkley's college backup? Why wouldn't of course I'd want Miles Sanders. I just wouldn't want him for what I think he would cost. Of course I'd want Miles Sanders. But if we're going to let Barkley go, I'd sooner just rather draft the running back in the 3rd or 4th round than pay Miles Sanders whatever. I got to imagine he's going to have a pretty high market. I'd just draft the running back and use that money to improve the offensive line or somewhere else on this football team. Let's see what we got. Mike Moran says, forget Miles Sanders. We got to sign Boston Scott. The first thing we got to do with Boston, that's the first move we got to make. First move the Giants got to make this offseason. Boston Scott needs to be a New York Giant. I don't care if the guy ever plays it down as a Giant. If you sign Boston Scott, you could already take 21 points off the board whenever we play the Philadelphia Eagles. Because anytime, like if Boston Scott's not an Eagle next year and the Eagles beat us 21-7, they would have beaten us 42-7. Because every time we play the Eagles, Boston Scott's going to score 3 touchdowns. So the first thing the Giants need to do is sign Boston Scott and put him on the practice squad. And he never has to play it down as a Giant. But he's still helping the football team because he's not an Eagle. So I agree with you. That's the first move that we got to make. Let's see what we got. And John Turner says, our talent masked Gannon's deficiencies, and it showed giving up points to the Lions, Cowboys, etc. That was the issue. Were you surprised Hurts played so well? No, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised Hurts played so well. Call me a hater, John. Look at what the guy's got. I mean, my God. Go back and watch the game. Jalen Hurts is sitting in the pocket. He's sitting in the pocket. He's got 6 seconds to scan the field. He's just sitting there. Daniel Jones drops back in the pocket, and he's trying to put on a bulletproof vest. Jalen Hurts steps back in the pocket, and he could read the whole Lord of the Rings novel. He's like, I got all day. I got all the time in the world. Let me check my emails. He's got all day. So, no, I'm not surprised that Jalen Hurts played good. And then he throws a ball up into double coverage, and he's got a receiver that could come up with it. So, no, I'm not surprised that Jalen Hurts played well. He's got an offensive line. Every time that Jalen Hurts did a QB sneak, I'm looking at their offensive line. I'm looking at Kelsey. The Eagles are pushing them 3 yards back. 3 yards back. Every time. If you're the Eagles, that's all you got to do the whole game. 1st and 10, QB sneak, 4 yards. 2nd and 6, QB sneak, 3 yards. 3rd and 3, QB sneak, 1st down. Reset. They're pushing them. The defense knows exactly what they're going to do, and the Eagles' offensive line is pushing them 3-4 yards back. So, no, I'm not surprised Jalen Hurts played well. Put me back there. I think I could have won the Super Bowl MVP. Let's see what we got. Chris says, have you watched former Giants Spencer Pacinger's TV show? Oh, I have. Not the most recent one, but I think I saw the first 2 seasons. I haven't seen. I think they made like 4. During the pandemic, I think I watched the first 2 seasons. It was all right from what I saw. And I know it was based off of Spencer Pacinger. Yeah, Lane Johnson's full start, 100%. Every time the guy was jumping, he had a full start. Every play. You could see it on the right side. And I couldn't stand it. I think it was Greg Olsen. I know Burkhardt and Olsen called the game, but I think it was Greg Olsen that was just. And listen, you have to understand, John, if you're listening to this or any Eagles fan listening to this, I'm a Giants fan. So you have to think about it from a Giants fan's perspective. I mean, my God. Lane Johnson is clearly has a full start like every play, and he's like, oh, no, that's perfect timing. Oh, that's perfect timing. He must have said it like 4 times, and they kept bragging about Jalen Hurts the entire game. I couldn't stand it. Let's see what we got. Imagine if the Eagles never fired Andy Reid. I was so thrilled the day that they fired Andy Reid. I've been consistent since I've been on YouTube. Andy Reid to me is one of the 2 or 3 greatest coaches since I've been watching football. Even when he was an Eagle, I always had tremendous respect for him. So I was so happy when they fired him. And Dark says, any chance New York takes a flyer on Hendon Hooker? I mean, maybe if he falls to like the 4th round. I don't know where he's going to drop, right, because of the injury. I don't think they'll spend the 2nd round pick on him, but I mean, you never know. But if he falls to, say, the 4th round, maybe. Let's see what we got. Yeah, dude, he really was bigging up the Eagles. And Boxing says, love the channel. That said, how could you marginalize Hurts like that? He was amazing on Sunday and all year. The team was not the same without him. Listen, Hurts had a really good year. And the Eagles were 0-2 in the regular season when he did not play, and he meant a lot to that team. And he should have been not the MVP, but he should have been top 3 or 4 for MVP. Had a great year. Played really well in the Super Bowl. But I think you could put probably 15 quarterbacks on that Eagles team, and they would play at an MVP level. I look at the 49ers with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, if you look at it on a game-by-game basis, basically did what Hurts did. He had like 14 touchdowns in 7 games. The Niners won basically every game the guy started. He played great because he had an incredible roster. So Hurts had a great year. Hurts played for a great team, and he had a great year. But do I think am I going to be happy when they give him a $55 million contract? Yeah. Do I think Daniel Jones could play at or around that level if he was on the Eagles? Yeah. Jason says, I love Barkley, but I'm more concerned about our overall running game over the running back per se. If that money could get us a very good, let me see what we got here. If that money could get us a very good interior offensive lineman or cornerback or linebacker, I'd rather have good backs in the draft. I completely understand the argument to not keep Saquon Barkley. And I'm not going to fight them if they don't do if they decide not to keep him. I think they will. I think it'll at least if anything, it'll be on a franchise tag. And I think he'll be back. I don't think they want to take him. I think they want to get some kind of deal done, but one that makes sense for Shane. But if they don't bring him back, I obviously understand the argument for all the reasons that Saquon Barkley talked about it. The guy's been hurt. He plays a short shelf life position. He's going to be 26. He wasn't drafted by Shane. So I understand it. I am not going to scream if they don't bring back Saquon Barkley. I want him back. I think he's a core piece to this team. I think he's a lot more important than a lot of Giants fans give him credit for. But I won't scream if they don't bring back Saquon Barkley. Let's see what we got. Hurts played solid and man, I'm gonna give him his props. He's a top 5 quarterback this year in terms of MVP. I'm gonna give him his props. He's in a top 5 scenario. That's all I'm gonna say. And if you pay him $55 million, do I think he can maintain that level of play? I personally do not. We'll see if he proves me wrong. Let's hope that he doesn't. If you're Giants fans, let's hope that they start to fall off if they pay him $55 million. Chris, what's your thoughts on the Eagles choking the Super Bowl? I don't think they choked in the Super Bowl. I just think they ran into Pat Mahomes. I think they ran into Pat Mahomes, and I think they ran into Andy Reid. And at the end of the day, as good of a year as the Philadelphia Eagles had, at the end of the day, when you give one of the best offensive head coaches in football 2 weeks to prepare for a football game, he's going to tear you apart. And that's what happened. So I don't think the Eagles choked. I just think they ran into the Chiefs. And you look at the Eagles this year, they didn't, and they could easily won that game. It was a really close game. But you look at the Eagles this year, they didn't play anybody near the Chiefs' caliber, right? Who did they play that was even close to the Chiefs, right? I mean, I think I'd have to go back and look at their schedule, but I think their most impressive regular season win was the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken, and that was very early in the year. Maybe there was one game I'm forgetting. And then in the playoffs, they beat a 49er team with Brock Purdy not being able to throw the football for 3 quarters. So to me, they didn't play a team even close to the Chiefs this year. It's why I thought it'd be a very close game. I don't think they choked. I just think the Chiefs beat them. I think the Chiefs had a good game. Let's see what we got. John says, Chris, good teams have talent and schemes. 100%. And you definitely have that. So do we. Well, we have the schemes. We need more talent. But you certainly have the coaching, and you have tons of talent. Probably the best overall team. It's either you or the Niners. It's close for me in terms of a 53-man roster. Volatile says, I'm excited for Hodgins next season. He'll be so cheap in 2023, $870,000, and we could pick up a wide receiver 1 in the draft or signing. Yeah. Well, Hodgins is definitely going to be back. I forgot what the term is called. We talked about this on Patricia Traina's channel. I forgot what the term is called, but I think it was, I don't know. It's a specific type of free agent where the New York Giants, like you said, just have to pay him $875,000, which they're obviously going to do. So he's going to be back. Hopefully he's a wide receiver 3 or 4, ideally. And we are able to get a number 1 in the draft or trade for a wide receiver, whatever. But yeah, I'm excited to see Hodgins back. Obviously, he had great chemistry with Daniel Jones, and he's familiar with what obviously Dable's looking to do, being that he came from Buffalo. So I'm excited to see what he could be year 2 with the New York Giants. He's certainly going to be back. Let's see what we got. No, I don't think the Eagles choked at all. I think, you want to talk about a choke in the playoffs. I think the Chargers choked. People got in an argument with me on Twitter about this, but yeah, I think the Chargers choked. Not Justin Herbert, rather. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 picks in the first half. It might have been 5 picks in the first half. They had a huge lead, and they gave up the biggest lead in the history of the playoffs football, I think, or it was right there. So that, to me, was a choke. I don't think the Eagles choked. I just think the Chiefs beat them. James says, are you all Giants fans crazy? We keep in Barkley forgot Sanders would cost a lot of money. Pay boy, here go Penn State. We're keeping Barkley. I agree with you. It's just a matter of how long the contract's going to be, but I think Barkley will be back next year as a New York Giant. Exclusive rights free agent. That's what it is. Yes. Thank you, Mark. Vikings choke. I don't think the Vikings choke against the Giants. I don't think the Vikings choke. I just think the Vikings defense sucks. I don't think they choked. I just think their defense sucks, and Daniel Jones picked them apart, but I don't think they choked. Blue Collar, what's going on, man? Philly used to be a real fan base. Now the media turned them into a frat house. We have the best fans and the worst stadium. Are they fixing the turf? Yeah, I don't know if they're going to fix it, but they're changing the turf. I don't know if that means they're going to, if it's going to be fixed, hopefully. Speaking of turf, guys, how hard, did you see the turf in Arizona? Holy crap. The turf in Arizona made MetLife Stadium look like nothing. Guys were slipping like every other play. The turf in Arizona was horrible. But yes, supposedly the New York Giants tested out, I think it was like 2 or 3 different types of turfs during the season, and they picked one out. And hopefully it helps reduce injuries. We'll see next year. But yeah, they're changing the turf. Thank God. Let's see what we got. Jason says, if Keenan Allen or Michael Thomas are waived, would you be okay with signing either to a short-term deal? I think we will find a good receiver soon. Why? I mean, I don't know Keenan Allen's contract status, but why would he be waived? Obviously, Thomas probably will be. I think Thomas is done at this point. Keenan Allen, let me see. I don't think they're going to waive him. I mean, yeah, they would save what? Like $14 million if they cut him, 14.7. But I mean, at the end of the day, Herbert's still on an affordable contract. I don't see that happening. If they're going to waive him, it might be the following year where he's 25.8 against the cap, but he's going to be 32 years old and he's only 2.7 a cut. But I don't think they'll cut him this year. I'd be shocked if they cut Keenan Allen. Again, I don't follow the Chargers as closely as I follow the Giants, but I'd be very surprised. Michael Thomas, I think, will be cut, but I think Michael Thomas is washed. I'm not really interested in him. But let's see what we got. It's okay, guys. Calm down. I'll pay Saquon's contract. There you go, Chaotic. No, Dable, I'm gonna be doing it though. I meant to do the member stream, and the last 2 weeks have been crazy with work, so I'm gonna do that this week at some point. I don't want to give you a committed day, but I'm gonna do that at some point this week, and we'll do that. We'll do that stream. It's just been crazy with work the last 2 weeks. Is Colin Johnson under contract? I don't think he is, but I'm sure he's a guy that we could bring back for like a near leagueman contract. And he I think if I recall, like he kind of like hung around with the Giants, even though he wasn't with the team. I think he's going to be a camp invite. And it only makes sense, right? He's a guy that at least is relatively familiar with the offense. He's a guy that was going to make the team. He looked impressive in training camp. He at least has some chemistry with Daniel Jones, and playing with Dable and everybody else. So I think he'll be at least a camp invite. Whether or not he makes the team, who knows? I mean, who knows what he's going to look like off the injury and everything else? But I think he'll be invited to camp. Let's see what we got. He is okay. So he is on the contract for next season. Okay. So there you go. Let me take a look at his contract. It's probably like the same deal as yes, he is right there. $1.1 million, basically. So yeah, he's on the contract. Obviously, I'm assuming it's a contract that the Giants could easily get out of. But yeah, he's on the contract next year. Let me just make sure of that. Is over the cap. Let me see. Yeah, it says $0 to cut him. So it's not like a guy that we're committed to, but it's a guy that will be in camp. Yes. Did Bradbury hold? All right. I'm going to be honest. Did Bradbury hold by the letter of the law? Yes. It was a hold. Should they have called it? No. Am I happy they did? Yes. So did he hold? Yes. Was it a little ticky-tacky, especially for that point in the game? Absolutely. So yeah. Let's see what we got. He definitely held him though. I'm not gonna say he didn't hold him. Fabian, what's going on, man? Did you all see the drama today in the NFL? Yeah, so stupid. The whole Juju thing. Matthew says, is he technically held? Then why couldn't they call it? They could. I'm not saying they were wrong in calling it, but I mean, for that spot in the game, I don't know. Let's put it this way: if I was an Eagle fan, I'd be furious. Foxy says, Tana, what are your thoughts on the G? But as a Giants fan, I was ecstatic. Foxy Oak says, Tana, what are your thoughts of the G-men on DC remaining and Philly losing both theirs? I mean, I love it. You mean our coach, Wink and Kafka. I love it. I love that they're back. It's great. Continuity right on both sides of the football. It's great. As far as the Eagles losing theirs, yeah, it's great news. We'll see who they replace him with. But you have to figure there's at least going to be some kind of transition for Hurts and the offense and everything else, right? Having to learn a new playbook and everything else. So, yeah, I love it as a Giants fan. Matter of fact, kind of hope we get the Eagles early next year because maybe it'll take them a few weeks to get acclimated to the new play call and everything else. Let's see. What positions do we draft in the first and second? I have best available player. I know I'm going to get asked this all off season, especially this year, especially where we're picking. Like I think in like more recent drafts when you're picking like 5th, 6th. As crazy as this may sound, I think you incorporate need more into the equation than you do if you're picking 25th. If you're picking 5th or 6th, any player you're picking there is going to be like a super high-end prospect. And if it's a draft in which they're, like when we needed Andrew Thomas, when we needed a tackle, if it's a draft in which like maybe you have Isaiah Simmons, a spot hire, or you have, no, I don't even remember the other Derek Brown, right? I think he was the defensive tackle. If the tackle's even close, if that is such a big need, you take him. But when you're picking 25th, you take the best player on your board. Now, of course, if it's like relatively close, like very close, and it's neck and neck, you go with the wide receiver or you go with the cornerback perhaps or whatever. But the later you pick in the draft, in the first round in particular, I think as the draft prolongs, you're just going best available player. You're just, especially when you're a team like the Giants that's as depleted in so many areas as we are. But the further you pick back in the first round, I think you're just going to take the best player on your board more often than not. And that's what I think they're going to do. I don't think they're going to force a wide receiver pick. I don't think they're going to force any position pick. I think they're going to take the best player available to them that fills a need. What do I think it'll be? I think it's either going to be a cornerback or a wide receiver, just because I think that's where the value meets. And we know that Joe Schoen's a guy that values positions that are, thought to be positional value, right? Whether it be cornerback, wide receiver, quarterback, offensive tackle, edge rusher. And it just so happens that I think the value in the draft is probably going to either be wide receiver or cornerback where we're picking, but I think they're going to take the best player on their board. The hold was weak, but Philly got a scoop and score. Yeah, they did. I personally think that was a fumble when I was watching it. I think they got lucky. Sherrod says, I'm just glad we aren't drafted top 10 again because we're trash. Yeah, well, that's as fun as it is to have high picks like last year when we had 2 picks inside the top 7 and you're excited to see who you're going to get. It's a much better feeling to be picking 25th because that means you're coming off a really successful year in which you won a playoff game. So, and you see the best teams in the league. The Ravens consistently pick at the back of the draft. The Patriots always picked at the back of the draft when they were good, right? If you have a good GM that knows how to, and a good coach that knows how to get the most out of the players that the GM drafts, you could find good players later in the first round. Let's see what we got. MY Giants 26 is going to miss our of day 2. Will I miss our pick? No, I don't think so. Well, day 2 does go quicker. Not if it's only an hour. I think the picks are 5 minutes day 2. And sometimes they'll go a little bit quicker than others. But no, I think you would catch our pick, our second round pick, unless we trade it up or something like that. Any chance of us trading down in the draft, Matthew says? Yeah, I think there's always a chance we could trade down. 100% we could trade down. It makes sense, right? You want to continue to accrue more and more draft capital, whether it be to potentially trade it for a quarterback, whether it be to potentially trade for a future wide receiver. If you decide to make a move like the Eagles did for A.J. Brown in a future draft, it's always valuable if the right deal is there and you're not enamored with the prospects that you're picking at 25. And we're kind of in a spot where, you see this a lot in drafts where, like in the back end of the first round, a lot of times, like as quarterbacks are dropping, you saw it with Lamar Jackson. I think there's been a couple of other instances where a quarterback will drop a little bit further than people expected, and you'll have a team trade back up into the first round to make sure they get that quarterback. We're kind of picking in that spot where, I don't know, say a guy like Anthony Richardson is dropping. I personally don't think he will. I think he's going to have an impressive combine, and he'll probably be a top 10 or 15 pick just based off of his potential with all the quarterback-needy teams. But let's say a guy like that drops to 25. If a team's willing to give you a pretty good offer to jump from, say, 34 to 25, and you don't love any player there at 25, sure, I think you at least listen to the offers that you're presented with. Let's see what we got. V-Man says another Eagles season ruined by Andy Reid. Let's go. I was so happy to see Andy Reid get his revenge, man. Chris, why doesn't the NBA draft the same way the NFL does, where the worst record gets the pick instead of the stupid? It's simple, Jabari. Why? And people have brought up the possibility of the NFL instituting a lottery. They're not going to do it, nor should they, in my opinion, because it's the ultimate team sport is what they say, right? In basketball, one player makes, and I know quarterbacks are huge, but in basketball, the impact of a player like LeBron James or John Morant, in terms of an early draft pick in a more recent draft, like LeBron James, when he was in his prime, he would add 40 teams to any team that he went to. So in basketball, where one player has such a huge impact, that's why they institute the draft lottery. Otherwise, half the league would tank. What sucks about the NBA for me, and I like the NBA. I watch the Knicks all the time. I watch basketball all the time. But what sucks about the NBA, there's no parity. Before the year starts, there's like 3 teams or 4 teams that can win a championship more often than not. Where in football, there's like 15 teams at the start of the year that at least have some kind of chance. So if there was no draft lottery and there was rich prospects in the next draft, half the league before the year started would be trying to lose as many games as they possibly could to get the first pick. So that's why they have it in basketball. Let's see what we got. Chris says, I think we sign a linebacker this offseason and draft a cornerback in the first. There's a ton of talent there compared to wide receivers. That's exactly what I think we're going to do. I think we're going to sign a linebacker in free agency, and I'm at least leaning right now that I think we'll take a cornerback. But we could go so many different ways in the first round, but that's where I'm leaning. Sam says, Chris, what do you take from Brandon Ayuk liking a picture of himself in a Giants jersey? I think he would be amazing in our scheme. I take nothing from that. I take that Brandon Ayuk liked the picture of him in a Giants jersey. I don't think that means anything. At the end of the day, Brandon Ayuk's not even a free agent. He's under contract. And I think he's got a fifth-year option the year after that. So technically, if the 49ers want, they have 2 more years of control over Brandon Ayuk. So I take nothing over him liking an Instagram picture of himself in a New York Giants uniform. It means nothing. Would I like Brandon Ayuk in a Giants uniform? 100%. I think he's super talented. Outside of putting Adoree out to return punts, was there anything else you really didn't like from Dable this year? What are 3 things you'd like to see him improve on? That's a question I'd like to be able to think about for a bit, and give you a really good detailed answer. But yeah, that's obviously like the first thing that pops off to your head, right? Like that was it was like an undeniable mistake that we all said it as fans before, long before Adoree got hurt, like that, this is a mistake. And I think in the back of our heads, Alan, I don't know how old you are, but like we all have, Jason Seahorn in the back of our head, right? He got hurt. I think it was returning a kick or a punt. And you say to yourself, like, this is just an unnecessary risk. Like, what are you risking? A guy that may be able to get you 3 more yards per average on a punt. And if he goes down, like, we were already super thin at the cornerback position to begin with. So that was like clearly his biggest mistake this year. In terms of, and I'm not trying to like say that he's flawless. He's not. But in terms of like something for me to like nitpick about for Brian Dable to work on, like, it's hard. I got to think about it because he did such a good job this year. Like, we won 9 games. Nobody expected us to do that. He kept us in basically, like, when you think about the Giants season this year, outside of the Eagles games, okay? And by the way, this is like the new common, like, talking point that I hear from people that like to be detractors and are like, all about blowing things up and say everything the Giants did was a fluke and we need to draft a quarterback and just start completely over from scratch. The new talking point that they have is, well, the New York Giants finished, what did they finish over their last? I think it was like 3-5-1 or whatever it was over there. What was their? They started 6-1. They started 6-1, and so they finished the year 9-7-1. And then if you include the playoffs, they finished 10-8-1. So if you include the playoffs, they finished, what is that? 4-7-1. So that's like the talking point. They're like, oh, well, the Giants finished 4-7-1. Once Daniel Jones started throwing the football, look what happened. Okay, let's look what happened. In those 10 games, who did they play 3 times? And if we played the Philadelphia Eagles in the first half of the league, in our first 7 games, do you think we would have won any of them? My answer is no. So right out of the gate, take those 3 games off the board, put them in the first half. All of a sudden, you're 3 games worse in the first half. You're 3 games better in the second half. So to me, that is the silliest talking point. But as far as Brian Dable goes, what does he need to do better? I thought as a whole, we made really good second half adjustments week to week. Were there individual games here and there? Sure. I thought he was great with his challenges for the most part. I can't really complain. Yeah, of course, you could look at an instance here or there where he didn't manage timeouts great. But overall, for the most part, I thought he did a really good job with that in terms of clock management. All right. And I love his aggression. I love it. Okay. But I'm nitpicking here. You're asking me to nitpick. I love his aggression. Okay. I was calling for him to go for 2 the first week. He did it. I was super pumped up. His decision to go for it, I think it was on 4th and 9. And listen, at the end of the day, it worked the first time, I think, when we played Washington, right? But in a playoff game against the Philadelphia Eagles, when you had the ball on like their 45, his decision, and we were going to lose that game no matter what, but his decision to go for 4th and 9 there, I don't know about that one. So maybe there's times where he has to be slightly less aggressive. Like if I'm trying to nitpick. But overall, Brian Daboll did a phenomenal job this year. Phenomenal job. And I'm super excited to see what he could grow into as the New York Giants head coach, over the course of the next 3, 4, 5, hopefully next 20 years. But, yeah, I'm a big fan of Brian Daboll. But I'm just trying to nitpick. Like, I'm trying to find, like, little things. But I love him. I mean, I love how authentic the guy is. He's such a breath of fresh air, right? Like, and listen, I'm not going to say everybody because I can't speak for everybody. But a lot of us fell for Joe Judge because the biggest reason why I think we fell for Joe Judge, myself included, is you want something, you want hope, you want something to gravitate towards. And we all fell in love with Joe Judge at the beginning because of his press conference and yada, 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 yada. And I think once we broke up with Joe Judge, Brian Daboll is a breath of fresh air because he's the complete opposite. Like the way Brian Daboll handles the press conference, like he's just himself. He's so comfortable in his own skin. So the way he handles the media, I think he's authentic. I think he's great. I love Brian Daboll. I'm trying not to hype him up too much because I know like if we struggle next year, people are going to come at. But I love year one of Brian Daboll. I'm sure there's going to be things from within games that I could point at and question. But overall, it's very hard to question anything the guy did this year. He got so much out of this team. He got this team to fight each and every week. So I love Brian Daboll. Let's see what we got here. Chris says, what do you like to see both Wink and Kafka do different next season? That's a good one. And I'm going to do Nick streams after the All-Star break, Dak. I'm going to try to do every game. As far as the Kafka and listen, I know like the complaint with Wink, and you're going to get this complaint. I knew going into the year you were going to get the complaint with Wink that he blitzes too much because he's going to blitz. That's who he is. But at the end of the day, I think it's like you can't really judge these guys. Like, what did they have to work with? Like, Wink wants to run a blitz-heavy scheme, and he has no cornerbacks. And he has no coverage linebackers. So if you can't cover in a defense that Wink wants to be super aggressive, of course you're going to have lapses at times, right? The one thing that really stood out to me from the defense this year, think about this. Outside of, I want to say like the couple of Eagles games, there wasn't really any plays where the Giants got beat for like a 40, 50-yard touchdown. Like we didn't give up a lot of, which I was really worried about going into the year with Wink, right? Being that we were super aggressive and we were ultra thin at the cornerback position. And I didn't think we necessarily had the best personnel to run his type of defensive scheme. So from that aspect, we at least forced teams to have long sustaining drives, and sometimes they would make mistakes, whether it be a holding penalty, whether it be throwing an interception. But it's very hard to be overly critical of Wink when he didn't have the pieces he needs to have to run the type of defense he wants to run. And you could say the same thing about you could say the same thing on the other side of the ball. And I think Kafka did a great job overall year one. But, we talk about all the overall limitations that Daniel Jones has. Kafka's got those same limitations. And add Daniel Jones to that, by the way. And that's not a knock on Daniel Jones, but just the fact that you have a quarterback year one in your offense is a disadvantage for an offensive play caller, just like it's a disadvantage for the quarterback. So just being with Jones for another year alone is going to help Kafka. So I think both of them did about as good of a job as you could hope for year one. I think it'll be, easier to be a little bit more judgmental of these guys as we get more talent on both sides of the football. But yeah, I mean, I guess if there's one thing that you could really complain about Wink is, yeah, there are times where he probably blitzes where he shouldn't. Maybe if, but at the same time, if the blitz gets there, you're going to be super happy. So I think you got to live by the sword, die by the sword when you got Wink Martindale. You know what you're getting in bed with. He's going to be a guy that's going to go after the quarterback, and he's going to be aggressive. And when you have the pieces for that to be successful, he could have great success. We saw that with Baltimore, but we got to get those pieces. We saw this defense fall apart. The defense couldn't stop a nosebleed on the ground. We got to get better linebackers. We got to get a guy that can stuff the middle on the defensive line more consistently. We got to get more depth on that line, and we got to get cornerback help. But I think both of them did a really good job overall based off the overall roster. Kafka, I think it was a year where you saw the offense evolve over the course of the year. Like early on in the year, I think the Giants looked at the overall limitations of the roster. I think they saw an offensive line with a rookie right tackle who was struggling. They saw an interior offensive line that doesn't have much talent to speak of. They saw a running back that is one of the most talented players in the league, and they saw a quarterback still trying to learn an offensive scheme on the fly with very little help at the wide receiver position. And they said, we're going to rely heavily on the run. So that's what they did. And then as the season progressed and Jones got more comfortable from within the offense, and they add a guy like Hodgins, they started to slowly develop the offense. And then we ultimately saw towards the end of the year what this offense is probably going to look more like in 2023. So to me, it was kind of baby steps with the offense. And as the year progressed, it got better and better and better and better. And I think next year you're going to see a more aggressive offensive approach from Kafka. So, I'm a big fan of Kafka. I'm a big fan, obviously, of Dable. It's hard. Like, I could nitpick at times, I guess, from within games with specific play calls, but overall, I thought Kafka did a great job, and I think Dable did a great job on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, how could you say otherwise? They went from the worst offense in football to middle of the pack in 1 year, and the only acquisition they added was, like, the real Saquon Barkley got back, right? Other than that, we didn't really have any acquisition. We lost Tony. We didn't have Galladay. So, what do you want to see DJ do better next year? I mean, I want to see a more explosive offense next year, right? And that's not just DJ. That's the pieces around DJ. That's getting him more help. But yeah, I want to see a more explosive offense. I want to see I'm not saying I want to see the Vikings performance every game, but I want to see a more open offense next year. I want to see Jones take more shots down the field. I want to see them evolve more as an offense. I want to see more big plays. So yeah, that's what I want to see, not just from Jones, but the offense as a whole. And I think we will. I think as you get him more weapons and this offensive line gets better, I think we will take more shots down the field. I think you also got to realize that I think the coaching staff told Jones, listen, make the plays when they're there. We're not a team that could afford to make mistakes. We're not a team that could afford to turn the football over, because if we do, we're going to lose. So I think the Giants inherently took less risks on purpose, because they knew if they made one mistake, they're not going to be able to beat these football teams. So I think as this team improves, you'll see a more open offense. But yeah, I think Jones took great strides in a couple areas for me. His pocket awareness got a lot better this year. I don't even think that's, like, even the biggest Daniel Jones hater can't deny that. Like, it's obvious. You watch the game, you use your eyes. That's not something a box score could tell you. His feel in the pocket got a lot better. I don't even think that's debatable. That got a lot better. Obviously, his ability to take care of the football got a lot better. And that has been getting better in the last couple of years, but that got better, right? I think he had an under 1% interception percentage, which he's only the second quarterback since 2019 to accomplish that. The other one being Aaron Rodgers. And I understand he didn't throw as many, but it's based off percentage. And I understand he didn't take a lot of shots down the field, but that got better. He also got a lot better in the red zone. And a lot of that obviously goes to Kafka too, the play calling. They scheme guys open, but he got better in those areas. But yeah, I need to see more explosion in this offense next year as we get more talent around him and as he gets more acclimated to the scheme. For sure. I need to see more explosive plays. Let's see what we got. Were you disappointed how the majority of our rookies all got seriously hurt? I mean, listen, injuries are part of the sport, right? I mean, it's unfortunate, and I think it's bad luck. But yeah, I think outside of Micah McFadden, every rookie on this team missed significant time this year, which sucks. But I mean, I guess I was disappointed. But at the end of the day, hopefully they bounce back next year and we see them continue to, improve as pros. It's why drafting is so important. Like when people think about the draft, they just think about the first round. They just think about the second round. But the 5th, 6th, 7th round, that's where you get your depth, right? And you look at all the successful teams around the league, they have depth. Like a guy goes down, they have guys that could step in and continue to provide good play. Tanny, you think Jones drags this out to see what other quarterbacks? I don't think he's going to get the opportunity, Jacob. You know, somebody asked me on Twitter today or yesterday, they said, Chris, what's your walkaway price? Because that was a phrase that Joe Shane used. He has a walkaway price for every player. And don't get it twisted. He's got a walkaway price for Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones' agent comes to him and says 5 years, $250 million, take it or leave it, he's going to leave it. But I don't think he has a quote-unquote walkaway price. Daniel Jones is going to be a Giant next year. The only question is he going to sign a contract or is he going to be franchise tagged? So Daniel Jones is going to be here next year. The question is, are the Giants going to be forced to tag him if Jones and his representative aren't willing to talk what they feel is a reasonable contract? That's what I think we're looking at. And even if they tag Jones, he may not necessarily start the year on the tag. It may just be used as a device to not allow him to hit the open market so that a team could sign him to a $40 or $45 million contract. But make no mistake about it. If the Giants did not tag Daniel Jones before free agency, yeah, there would be teams that would drive up the price. And the Giants know that, which is why they're going to tag him if they can't get a deal done before the tag deadline. That's what I see coming. That's what I see coming if they can't get a deal done. Let's see what we got. Richard says, they booed Dak at the Super Bowl. Keep Jones, play good now. They booed Dak at the Super Bowl? Dak was at the Super Bowl? As far as and I don't blame him for blaming Dak. He's a Cowboy. I'd boo him too. As far as Jones played good now, I mean, Jones played really well last year. Tony, Johnny's losing to DePaul. The Johnnies are too hit and miss. They beat Providence their last game, and now they're losing to DePaul. Pop says, do you think Patrick Mahomes is a Hall of Fame locker? Yes. Patrick Mahomes, I think, could not play another game and he'd be a Hall of Famer. And listen, I'm going to say this about Pat Mahomes right now. Coming into the year, I was of the mindset that Mahomes and Allen were kind of in their own class. Like they were like, those were the two superheroes, like in terms of like physical skill set. And I still think those are the two, like when I watch those two quarterbacks from a physical standpoint, those are the two guys that like make my jaw drop. But the difference between Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen is Pat Mahomes' IQ. Josh Allen can make ridiculous plays like Pat Mahomes can. But Pat Mahomes' IQ is on another level. Not just from Josh Allen, but any quarterback in the league. You see the things that this guy's able to do off script. Like, he's on his own plane. Like, it's Pat Mahomes is here, and then the next tier is like here. It's like, it's Pat Mahomes. It's like, and then you got like Burrow, Allen, I don't know, insert another Herbert if you want to say, I don't know. But it's Mahomes is by far the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't even think it's close right now. He's by far the best quarterback in the NFL. What's your thoughts on Kadarius Toney making a big play and scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl? I love him. He helped beat the Eagles. I absolutely love him. I think Joe Shane should have won the MVP of the Super Bowl. Joe Shane was thinking long term when he traded Kadarius Toney. He said he's gonna help knock the Philadelphia Eagles out, and he said I'm gonna let Bradbury walk because he's gonna have the holding penalty. So I think Joe Shane should have won the Super Bowl MVP, as good as Pat Mahomes is. Blue Collar says our secondary is interesting. What do you do there? We definitely need to add more talent in the secondary. I like a lot of I like Aaron Robinson. I've said that. Obviously, he's coming off the injury, but I do think he's going to fit this scheme so well if he's healthy. In the slot, I think he's more of a slot than an outside corner, and I like Flott a lot. I don't know what he's going to develop into. We'll see, but I think he's got to pack on 15, 20 more pounds of muscle. But when I saw him in training camp this past year, he impressed me. Like, I like him. He's got long arms. He's fast. Got pretty good height. Adoree, I don't know how much longer he's going to be here, but I like Adoree. But I think we need more talent in that secondary. I still think we need another like really good cornerback. And I think we're going to try to attack that. Like I said earlier in the stream, I think we're taking an early cornerback in this year's draft. But yeah, I think there's at least some potential in the secondary. Like, it's not at the cornerback position specifically. I don't think it's nearly as depleted as like our linebacking core. Like, our linebacking core, we have nothing. We have nothing. There's nothing in our linebacking core. I like Robinson. I like Flott. I just think we need like a really good cornerback though to really solidify that unit. The most important thing to do with our secondary is make sure we keep Jerome. Yeah, he's a really good coach. He might get a defensive coordinator job sooner or later, but yeah, people rave about him. And the job he did this year with this secondary, pretty good. I mean, you think about all the injuries we had, pretty good. What are your thoughts on the new coaches that were just hired? Let me think. I mean, I'm happy for D'Amico Ryans. He's a guy that has been talked about as a hot head coaching candidate for like the last 2 or 3 years with the 49ers. And it's like a perfect fit, right? He's going back to where he played with the Houston Texans. I feel bad for him because he's probably going to fail because the Houston Texans are a mess and they move on from coaches every year. But yeah, I was happy to see that he got a job. I don't know. I mean, I don't know much about the Eagles coordinators. I don't know much about them. So I hope they fail because they're Eagles. I'm trying to think of the other coaches that were hired because it was a while ago now because the Cardinals decided to drag this out as well as the Colts. I'm trying to think of all the other coaches that were. I think there was only 5 coaches hired this year. Last year there was like 8. MY Giants 26. He says, we have good secondary depth. We need starters though. We got one. Yeah. I mean, I think Flott could develop into a starter, but I don't necessarily think he's a starter quite yet. I think Robinson could be a starting slot, but you always want to add talent in that secondary. I'm trying to think of all the head coaching hires. Mahomes is the best quarterback, even with a high ankle sprain. Mahomes on another level. So I think I saw somebody in the chat say rank my quarterbacks. Like I said, it's Mahomes 1, and then like the next guy's like 10. Like to me, he's so much better than everybody else. But it's Mahomes 1, 2. I think I gotta have Burrow 2. He had a great year, even though I think Josh Allen personally is more physically gifted. Joe Burrow's great. I think I'd have Burrow 2. I might have Allen 3. I think I'd have Allen 3. And then then I'm not putting Herbert 4. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. I think I think Herbert is supremely talented. Supremely talented. I think he's got all the tools to be an incredible quarterback. What has Herbert done? What has Herbert done to be considered a top 3 or 4 quarterback? What has he done? He hasn't won a playoff game yet. He choked away a lead in the first half in his first playoff game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm not doing it. Do I think one day he's probably going to be a top 3 or 4 quarterback? Probably. But I'm not doing it. He hasn't earned that yet. He hasn't proved it yet. So I'd have to look around the league, but I'm not doing it. I'm not putting Herbert 3, 4. I'm not doing it. Let's see what we got. MY Giants 26 is off topic. Thoughts on base size change? I didn't even hear about that. Major League Baseball changes the rules like every year. I can't even keep up with it. Authentic, we were talking about it earlier. Let's take a poll in the chat. Because Authentic was one of the people not an argument, but a friendly debate on Twitter. I don't even know how to do a poll. Well, I'm not here. Let me see if I can do it real quick. Let's take a poll in the chat. Here you go. Did Justin Herbert choke in the first round of the playoffs? Yes or no? You guys let me know. I think he choked. I don't even think it's a debate that he choked, but that's just my personal opinion. But Justin Herbert is not a top 3 or 4 quarterback for me. He's got to prove more to me before I put him in that category. Let's see what we got. What's up, Max, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Yeah, I'm not saying it's exclusively just Herbert, but he's part of it. Is Matt Ryan if Matt Ryan choked in the Super Bowl, then Herbert choked this? Yeah. Hey, Chris, what's your thoughts on the halftime show drawing more higher ratings than the Super Bowl? I didn't even hear about that. I didn't even hear about that. Did Daniel Jones choke against what? No, he didn't. And there's times where Daniel Jones is choked. Maybe I'm confusing because we played two different Washington games. Well, you're talking about the one that we tied. The one that we tied, yeah, because the one that we won, you're not going to say that he choked. The one that we tied, no, he did not choke. And there are times where Daniel Jones is choked. I just think that's a poor example. In that game, John Feliciano choked. Daniel Jones got us the first down to get us in the field goal range. John Feliciano committed a ridiculous penalty. On the next drive, Darius Slayton choked. Daniel Jones threw a ball that hit both of Darius Slayton's hands, and Darius Slayton dropped it. So, no, I don't think that is an instance where you could say that Daniel Jones choked. If anything, I think it was an instance where Daniel Jones put us in a position to win the game 3 separate times, and players around him choked. So, no, I don't think Daniel Jones choked. Kobe says Trevor Lawrence top 3. No, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go that far. I'm not gonna go that far to say that Trevor Lawrence is top 3. Do I think he's gonna be? Yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is ridiculous, but I'm not gonna put him there yet. But he's trending that way. Do you think next year's team within our division will be close record-wise, or do you think the Eagles are still far? The Eagles are the best team in the division. I don't think that there's anything we could do next year from a because we're not going to go hand over fist in free agency. So I think next year the Eagles are still by far the best team in the division. But we're going to get better. Alice says, can you list your top 10 quarterbacks? I hate doing this because then you have people, you're biased. Oh, this, that. Let me take a quick look at the NFL. Let me look team to team. Let's see. I'm just going to name quarterbacks that could be in the top 10, and then I'll narrow down the list. Allen, obviously. I'm not putting 2 in the top 10. 2 had a situation from the heavens. Not putting him in the top 10. Mac Jones, no. Nobody on the Jets. Burrow, obviously, in the top 10. Lamar Jackson, that's 3 that could be in my top 10. Nobody on the Steelers. I'm not putting Watson in the top 10. He's got to prove himself. Will he probably be again? Yes, but not right now. I'm not putting him in the top 10. Trevor Lawrence, yes, that's 4. Titans, no. Colts, no. Texans, no. Chiefs, yes, that's 5. Herbert, 6. Nobody on the Raiders, not Russell Wilson. Hurts, 7. I'm not putting Dak in my top 10. We'll get back to Daniel Jones. Nobody on Washington. I'm not putting Cousins in my top 10. I'm not putting Goff in my top 10. I think he's good, and I think he had a really good year. I think he's like on the outskirts. Like if we're just talking about last year, he's definitely in the conversation for top 10. He might be top 10. Like I'll put him in there. That's 8 that we could at least have a conversation about. Rodgers, you still have to say yes. That's 9. No on Fields. Bucks, no. Carolina, no. New Orleans, no. Atlanta, no. 49ers, no. I'm not putting Purdy in the top 10 for 7 starts in the best situation in football. Yeah, I mean, and then after that, you got Kyler Murray, who I think you can make an argument Daniel Jones better than. But Kyler Murray's in the discussion. Stafford, if he gets back healthy, could be in the discussion. And Geno Smith had a really good year. But at that point, it's just pick your poison. Like, pick who you think should be at the back end of the top 10. But I think there's like 7 clear-cut top 10 quarterbacks right now. And that's Burrow, that's Allen, that's okay. I'll go with like my top 6 or 7 that are no doubters. Allen, Burrow. I will put Lawrence in like my top 7. Because I think he's really good. Mahomes, obviously. Herbert's going to be in my top 7 or 8, so he's in there. That's 5. Hurts, you have to. He had an incredible year. That's 6. And then after that, after those 6, I'm not going to call anybody crazy. And I'm not going to call anybody crazy for disagreeing with whoever you want to put there. But after those 6, there's about 8 quarterbacks for me that you could have a conversation that are interchangeable between like 7 and 14. And Daniel Jones is in that conversation. I think there are 6. Oh, and Aaron Rodgers. I forgot about him. That's 7. You still got to give Rodgers his respects. 7. After those 7, there's like 6 or 7 quarterbacks, 8 quarterbacks that you could say is anywhere from 8 to 14. And Daniel Jones is at least in that conversation. So there you go. I know, Authentic. You hate Daniel Jones. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Tana, do you think Purdy's career is done after that elbow injury that I've heard is devastating to a... No, I don't think he's done. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I think he'll be back. Who do you think can have a sneaky good year that's not a big name on the Giants? I mean, let me see the roster first. But I don't even know the team yet because there's so much roster turnover year to year in the NFL. I don't even know the team yet. If he's healthy, Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Wan'Dale Robinson fits this scheme so well. So if he's healthy, I'll say him. I don't know if he's healthy. But I could see Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm not saying he's going to have like a Pro Bowl year, but I could see Wan'Dale Robinson have a really nice year next year for the Giants if he's healthy. I'm not going to even put stats on it, but I think he's a guy that can have a nice impact for the Giants next year if he's healthy. Yeah, so I'll say him. But I don't know if he's going to be healthy. You don't see your shoe. If I missed it, Dark, I apologize. I think I read yours a while ago, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just look and make sure I didn't miss one. No, I don't think I missed it. I hope I didn't miss it. Given how stacked free agency in the draft is this year, specifically running back, do you really think it's the team's best interest to keep Saquon regardless of the leader he is? I think there's a price. I love Saquon. I want Saquon back, but there's a price. I don't think you bring Saquon Barkley back on a Christian McCaffrey contract. I don't think you bring him back on a Zeke contract. But I think there's a price. I think there's a price where it makes sense, and I think there's a price where it doesn't. And if you don't have to use the tag on Jones, I think you use the tag on Barkley if he's not willing to meet a reasonable price. And he's probably not going to be. He's probably not going to be willing to meet what Joe Shane feels is a reasonable price. So if they're able to work out a contract with Jones, maybe they tag Barkley. I want Barkley back. I love Barkley. But you still have to be responsible if you're Joe Shane. So it's a tough decision. I missed a members chat. Let me take a look. Because I'm looking at the chat on stream. I hate that they don't show the members chats on StreamYard. 70% said yes that he choked. So 30% agreed with Authentic. Let's see. I don't. Yeah, if I missed one, I must have missed it a while ago. So I apologize, guys. Kobe Dub says my dream scenario: trade Barkley, tag DJ, and trade for a wide receiver, Diop or DJ Moore or Higgins or Ayuk, and see what DJ has. My dream scenario: trade Barkley, tag DJ, and trade for a wide receiver, Diop or DJ Moore or Higgins. Well, the thing is, Kobe, you can't trade Barkley unless you sign him. So you have to first sign Barkley. And if you tag DJ, I don't think you'd be able to afford the contract of a guy like D-Hop or a guy like, because D-Hop's going to go, what, $20 million against the cap? Same thing with DJ Moore. So if you tag DJ, I don't think it affords you the luxury of being able to take on a salary like a DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, unless you were able to space it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could always make it work. But if they tag DJ, I don't see them bringing in a wide receiver that makes $25 million. I just don't see it. The only way they're going to be able to do something like that is I think they have to sign DJ to like a 3 or 4 year deal where they could distribute the money enough to give them enough cap space this year to take on a salary of a guy like a DeAndre Hopkins or of a guy like a DJ Moore. Yeah. So, and the only way you could trade Barkley is if you sign him. You have to sign him first. Let's see what we got. Dark Sammy, thank you very much, man. Of the New York Giants free agent, who do you think Shane brings back? So you mean like the lower level free agents? I mean, if we're talking about the high level, I do think Jones and in the end, I think Barkley will be back. I'm leaning Love won't be back. I'm leaning Slayton won't be back due to the fact that the wide receiver market's incredibly thin and he's probably going to get overpaid by somebody. Let me look at a list of the Giants free agents. Hold on. Let me see. I think Shepard has a chance to be back on like a really team-friendly deal because he's so respected in the locker room. I think Gates has a chance to be back, but it's got to be a really cheap contract. But I've talked to Patricia Traina, and who knows? She doesn't like tell me definitively, but she's told me she doesn't necessarily expect Gates to be back. So we'll see. I don't know what that means. Justin Ellis. No. Feliciano, they've said that he may be back. I hope not. He's not very good. But maybe he has one more year as a start. I hope not. I don't want him back. I'm not bringing Nick Williams back. He didn't do anything. Breida, I'd be okay bringing him back if it was, it was a similar contract to last year. I don't know, I don't know if they're going to draft the running back, but for what he got paid for $1.1 million, I'd be fine with that. Jihad Ward, I'd like back. Seemed like a really good chemistry guy in the locker room. Obviously, he's familiar with the scheme. As a depth guy, for the salary he was making, I'm completely fine with bringing him back. Same thing with a guy like Tony Jefferson. He's a near minimum contract, barely against the cap. Obviously familiar with Wink's defense. So guys like that, I could certainly see bringing back on cheap deals. Richie James, maybe as a back end of the roster receiver, for sure I could see coming back if it's affordable. Yeah, and then after that, I think Zimenez is gone. I think Moreau could be back, maybe. I don't know if his market increased due to the way that he played decent at times for the Giants this past year. But yeah, in terms of the big names, I think Jones and Barkley will be back. And then after that, they'll pick and choose based off their market. But I'm leaning Slayton won't be back. Love is closer to 50-50 for me, but I'm slightly leaning he won't be back due to the fact that we're going to have to pay McKinney at the same position in the near future. But we'll see. Let's see what we got. I hope Gates is back too. I know he's a fan favorite. He's super respected in the locker room. Who's going to start week 1 in the slot if you don't bring Richie James back? I don't know. It might be somebody we draft authentic. It might be another guy that we sign. I don't know. I have no idea. Let me see what they do in the draft. Let me see what they do in free agency. But I'm completely fine with bringing Richie James back. And we'll see if Wan'Dale Robinson is ready by week 1. He probably won't be, but I don't know that. But let me see what they do. Maybe they sign another slot receiver, or maybe they draft a slot receiver. Let's see what we got. Why, though? Why does it make no sense? If he's going to go basically not against the cap, which is what he would if he's a vet min salary, why? If he's a wide receiver 5 or 6, I'm not going to cry if they don't bring him back. But I'm saying if he's not going to affect the cap and he's a guy that they view as a leader in the locker room, I wouldn't be upset if they brought him back for like $1 million salary. He's not going to have a market anywhere else. But I'm not going to be surprised if he's not back. I'm not calling for him to be back, but I'm saying it's possible he could be back. Let's do. What's up, Alex, man? Thanks for popping in. You sent me a members chat. Let me see. Hold on one second. I'll try to find it, man. Oh, there we go. There you go, Elijah. I got you. I'd rather draft a wide receiver than sign one. Remember the last time? I think we're going to have to do both, though, Elijah. When I say sign a wide receiver, by the way, Elijah, I'm not saying, and later you said Kenny Golladay. I'm not saying sign that. I'm talking about guys that are going to fill the roster. When you look at our roster right now, Elijah, look at the wide receiver core. What's up, Master Man? Thanks for popping in. We have, the only 2 guys that we know for sure, and maybe James will be back, maybe Slayton will be back. Colin Johnson, good chance he'll be back because he's not making anything. But the only two guys we know for sure right now that are going to be back are Wan'Dale Robinson and Hodgins. Good chance probably two of the guys I just mentioned will be back along with them. Whether that's a combination of Richie James and Colin Johnson, Darius Slayton and Colin Johnson, Sterling Shepard and Colin Johnson. So let's say 4 receivers from last year's team are back. You still need 2, if not 3. So I think you have to fill one of those probably in free agency. It might be like a cost-effective guy, like a wide receiver 3, a wide receiver 4, but I think they will bring an A free agent wide receiver. I just don't think it's going to be like a Kenny Golladay, a top-end $18 million a year salary wide receiver. I think it's going to be like a bargain shopping $6 million wide receiver. But and then I think we will prioritize the wide receiver in the draft. I love Paris Campbell, Dar. I don't know how long you've been subscribed to my channel, but the year that I think, what did he come out in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, out of Ohio State, I was a big fan of Paris Campbell. I didn't think we were going to draft him, but I was a big fan of him. And he actually played pretty well this year for the Colts. The thing with Paris Campbell is he's a slot, right? And that's kind of what I envision Wan'Dale Robinson being. So how much are you going to pay a guy like Paris Campbell to play the slot? But I like him. I think he's got talent. Hey, Tanner, do you really want to have Glass Shepherd back? If he's back, I'm fine with it. As a 6th wide receiver, as a 5th wide receiver, as a guy that, like, if he's back in the same role that Darius Slayton had at the beginning of this year, a guy that came back for a vet minimum that basically didn't go against the salary cap, that was projected to be a number 5 going in, I'm okay with it. I'm not screaming either way. If they bring him back, okay. If they don't, okay. It's not. I don't think he's going to have much of an impact on the team regardless. Let's put it that way. Blue Collar says, after seeing the Eagles, why are we not talking O-line? We should be. We should be. And I know people get sick of me talking about it every offseason, but we should be, because at the end of the day, you got to compete from within the division. And anybody with a set of eyes, not just when we played the Eagles, but when we played the Cowboys, knows that we ain't going to compete in this division until both sides of our line get a lot better. So we need more depth on our D-line, and we need to get a lot better on our offensive line. Now, you have to hope that Evan Neal develops further this year, but we definitely need to improve the interior. That's a tremendous need this offseason. So we should be. There's no doubt about it. The Eagles had 80. You have to, at least partially, have to mold your team off of the strengths of the teams from within your division. The Eagles had like 80 sacks this year. The Cowboys got Micah Parsons. The Cowboys got Tank Lawrence. The Cowboys have a great offensive line. The Eagles have a great offensive line. You better be able to match up with them punch for punch. So there's no doubt about it. We got to improve the offensive line. That's got to be a big focal point this offseason. Both in the draft and potentially bringing in at least depth pieces in free agency. There's no doubt about it. Let's see. And Sarah, Paris Campbell, he wants to stay in Indy. I know you're a Colts fan. So, yeah, if he does, I mean, hopefully, I think he's a good receiver. I don't think we're going to get him, so hopefully he stays with you guys. I like him. I think he could be a good player for you guys. But listen, the argument I see about not keeping Sterling Shepard is this. And again, I'm not going to be upset either way. But the argument I see about not keeping Sterling Shepard is this. What is one area of this football team last year that we screamed about every week? And I'm not talking about the wide receiver position. Open your minds. What is one area of this football team every single freaking week that we screamed about? I'm going to let the chat answer the question. What's one area of the football team that we couldn't stand every week, that we worried about every week? It's not, no. Andrew says linebacker. No. It's run stopping. No. Okay. It relates to Sterling Shepard. It relates to where he would be on the back end of the roster. Special teams. There you go. That's the biggest argument, regardless of his contract, for not keeping Sterling Shepard on this roster. Because generally speaking, your wide receiver 5, your wide receiver 6. You're going to want those guys to be able to contribute on special teams in other areas of the football team. So to use that roster spot on Sterling Shepard, I could see that argument. So, yeah. Let's see what we got. Shepard is a gunner would get what could, yeah. Trick question, yeah. That's precisely why I said there's an argument not to bring him back, Danny Boy, because he would not contribute to special teams. That's what I'm saying. I'm not bugging. You're bugging for thinking that I was bugging. That's, yeah. Like on the back end of the roster, generally speak, like CJ Board, right? You think over the last 2 years. That's why he made the team as the wide receiver 6, as the wide receiver 5, because he was a guy that would contribute on special teams. Sterling Shepard doesn't bring that. So that to me is the biggest argument not to bring him back. Let's see what we got. Tanny, you only need to draft Joey. Yeah, he's a good prospect as well. Yeah, listen, I'm not going to be upset if they bring Shep back. No, man, that's cool, man. Cracked open a beer, watching some good old-fashioned hot. I know you are, Brian Dable. I see you at the Rangers games all the time, man. But thanks for being here, Dabes. What would you rather have, the Mets championship, Knicks championship, or Giants Super Bowl? I get asked this question all the time. I mean, my channel's built around the Giants. I love the Giants. I love all those teams you mentioned, though. All of them. I look at them like they're like my little babies, my little children. The only reason I think I would say either the Knicks or the Mets is because I've never seen them win. That's the only reason. But I love the Giants just as much, if not more than those teams. But because I've never seen those teams win, I think I would side with either the Mets or the Knicks. And I guess I would say the Knicks, even though I'm probably slightly more of a Mets fan than a Knicks fan. I don't know. It's very close. I'd probably say the Knicks just because I think like New York would just absolutely explode. And everybody in New York's a Knicks fan. New York would absolutely explode if the Knicks ever won. Like it would explode. Let's see. No, it would be insane, man, if the Knicks ever won. Also, Tane, I'm thinking about John Michael Schmitz, the center, in round 1 or 2, depending on how the draft lines up. Yeah, everybody's been talking about him as a potential second-round target, and maybe he will be. I could definitely see us going on interior offensive line in the second round. No, not yet, Jonathan. We're going to be doing that hopefully this week. I take the Knicks just because I never seen. Yeah, exactly. That's all I'm saying, Max. For me, it's either the Mets or the Knicks because I never seen either one win. I think I'd slightly lean Knicks just because of how important it would be to the city. Like the city would just shut down for like a month if the Knicks ever won, right? But I'd be any one of my teams win. It doesn't matter. The Giants have won before. I'm going to be ecstatic. So it's pretty close to equal. Herbert equals Matt Ryan, choke artist, and not clutch. I think it's way too early to make that distinction. I think Herbert, I personally think he came up short. When I say he came up short, I'm not even putting the majority of the blame on him. I'm not even the majority of the blame goes on the head coach. Staley's horrible. Just like the majority of the blame in the Super Bowl with the Falcons doesn't go. I don't think should go on Matt Ryan. I think it should have went on Shanahan. It was ridiculous, the play calling. But some of it has to go on him. But I think that's way too early to make that distinction. Herbert's only been in the league for 3 years, and Herbert's only played one playoff game. I still think Herbert could be great. And I think he is great from a talent standpoint. But I just think people prematurely are anointing this guy like he's Pat Mahomes or that he's in that caliber. Like I think he needs to prove a lot more before you could make that distinction. Who would you love to interview? It doesn't have to be sports related. Who would I love? Can I interview a dead guy, or does it have to be somebody that's living? I mean, obviously he wouldn't be dead while I interviewed him, but could it be anybody in the history of the world, or does it have to be somebody now? Who would I like to interview? That's a really good question. I mean, sports related would have to be Eli Manning. I'm Eli Manning, right? He's my favorite Giant. He's my favorite football player ever. So, it would have to be Eli Manning. And plus, he'd be a really fun interview, right? He's funny. He's quirky. He'd make me laugh. That'd be great. Carl Banks is definitely the highlight for sure. Since I've been doing YouTube, that was great. That was such a great conversation to like literally have like a back and forth with Carl Banks. That was awesome. Awesome. But I mean, yeah, I think like Eli Manning would sports related would be because he's my guy. I mean that I didn't get to appreciate Lawrence Taylor. So for my generation, he's the guy for most people that grew up watching the Giants my age. So yeah, that'd be my guy. Lawrence, listen, I would faint if I had Lawrence Taylor on the channel for an interview. I don't know how great of an interview Lawrence Taylor would be. And it would be entertaining. But I feel like Carl Banks is probably a better interview, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like he's a better interview. But of course, I'd be like fainting if I had Lawrence Taylor on the channel. You and Carl Banks was great, minus his dog barking. Yeah, it was great. Listen, I know I saw people in the comments after the fact say that, oh, Carl, put the dog to bed next time or whatever. At the end of the day, I'm not telling Carl Banks to do anything. Carl Banks come to my house and beat the ever-living crap out of me. And he helped us win 2 Super Bowls. He's a New York Giants legend. He's in the Ring of Honor. And while I was, as crazy as this may sound, if you're watching that interview back, you're like, how did that not bother Chris? When I was talking to Carl Banks, like the first couple of times, sure, but I'm trying to focus on what he's saying, and I'm trying to focus on, because I only had 30 minutes because I wanted to get everything out as much as I possibly could to give you guys as much content as I possibly could while I had him on the channel. So the whole time in my head, I'm thinking, all right, what's the next question I want to ask him? I want to get this out quick. I want to keep this a good pace of this conversation. So after like the first 2 barks, I didn't even hear it because the whole time I'm just focused on Carl and I'm focused on the next question I want to ask him. So for me, it didn't annoy me at all. But from somebody listening it back, of course, I can understand. Let's see. Tatum, what do you think about Mark? He's old at this point. He's old. And you know what was so cool about the Carl Banks interview? I remember when I first, well, not first started, but I think it was like during the beginning of the pandemic. I had like Sal Licata on, and I remember like listening back to the interview. And if you don't know who Sal Licata is, he's like a radio personality on like WFAN. He used to work for SNY with the Mets, and I was like really nervous. And I listened to it back. I was like, I didn't do well there. Like it didn't come across well. The Carl Banks one, I wasn't nervous at all. Like when he first popped in my head, I'm like, holy crap, that's Carl Banks. But once he came on, it was just like, it just felt like I was just having a conversation with anybody. It was cool. It was awesome. So it was just cool. I thought I didn't know if I was gonna be nervous or not, but I wasn't. It was awesome. We should pursue OBJ. I don't think we're gonna pursue OBJ. I don't see it happening. I know like he's obvious for obvious reasons, and I understand, and maybe they will if they sign him. Great, we need wide receiver help. I'd be surprised at this point if OBJ is a New York Giant next year. I'd be pretty surprised, especially after what came out with the plane. Maybe I'll be wrong. If they bring him in, I'll be excited. We need help, especially if it's a cheap contract. But I don't think we're gonna sign OBJ. Daniel Jones not getting my forgiveness until he makes a Super Bowl. What do you mean getting your forgiveness? What do you mean? You hate Daniel Jones? Is that what you're saying? And unless he makes a Super Bowl, you're going to continue to hate him? That's all right. Daniel Jones knew that when he took the job with the Giants. That comes with the territory. People hated Eli Manning his entire career. Let's see what we got. Rodgers is top 10 at least talent-wise. Obviously not in accolades, but he's definitely going to. Aaron Rodgers? Oh, dude. Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is, if we're just talking talent, Aaron Rodgers top 3, in my opinion, all time in terms of talent. Aaron Rodgers was Pat Mahomes before Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is another level. I think Pat Mahomes is even more talented than Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers is Pat Mahomes before Pat Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers combined an incredible football IQ with jaw-dropping talent. And just pure talent. Aaron Rodgers, one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time. Now, of course, he chokes in the big games. Hurts is the best quarterback in the NFL. Get out of my stream. Get the hell out of my stream. Get out. Oh God. This guy came into my stream and he decided to bring violence. Get the hell out of my stream. The best quarterback in the NFL. This guy's on drugs. What's up, Mini Guy, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Let's see what we got. Evan Ingram said he loves New York. I'm surprised, to be honest with you. No, I'm gonna give him his flowers. He played overall in the game. He played very well. I'm gonna give him his flowers. And this year he had a great year. But best quarterback in the NFL, my man, relax. But I hope he gets paid like he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Let's see. Mahomes has 2 Super Bowls. How many does Hurts have? He's got 2 less than that. And I think he'll retire with 2 less than that, if I'm being honest with you. And Caesar, thank you very much, man. Who is more legit, Hurts or Sirianni? I say Hurts. I mean, at that point, we're dealing with the world of hypotheticals. Let me ask you this. Let me ask the chat this. Who do you got? This is how I answer your question, because I have to do it in hypotheticals, because both of them are given a great situation. Who do you think would have more, and I don't even know this answer. I'm asking you guys. Who do you think would have more success with this year's Giants team? Jalen Hurts with the surrounding cast that Daniel Jones was provided with, and Brian Daboll's the head coach, or Nick Sirianni with Daniel Jones and the roster? That's the answer to your question. Whoever you think would have been more, I guess, yeah. How would the Giants have been more successful if Sirianni was that coach with the exact roster this year? Or would the Giants have been more successful if Hurts was the quarterback with Brian Daboll being the head coach? That's your answer. So whatever you think the answer is, that's what you think is more important than the Philadelphia Eagles. The last 12 quarterbacks to make the Super Bowl and lost the first time didn't make it back. That's a good stat. Let me see if I can name them. Let me see if I can name them without cheating. Well, I guess Hurts is included in that because he just lost. But so Hurts, Garoppolo, Cam Newton. That's 3. Who am I? I'm scanning over Super Bowls here. Foles won. Stafford won the first time he got in. Oh, Jared Goff. That's another one. That's 4. Steve McNair. I don't know if he's in the last 12, but he lost the only time he made it back in 99. That's 5. Rex Grossman. Rex freaking Grossman made a Super Bowl with the Bears. That'd be 6. Where are we going? Let me see. Somebody's gonna say that. Oh, Matt Ryan. Yeah, that's 7. Let's see. Kaepernick. There's a good one. That's 8. That's 8. Jake Delhomme with the Panthers against Brady. Yep, that's 9. Burrow, 10. Kerry Collins. Don't remind me. You shouldn't have said that. Don't remind me about Kerry Collins. Well, Joe Namath won. He won in 69, the only Super Bowl he made. Don't remind me about Kerry Collins. But yes, Kerry Collins made it in 2000 with the Giants. Hurts says the ugliest deep ball in the NFL. I don't know. I haven't looked at everybody's deep ball in the NFL, but it didn't look good on that Hail Mary, I'll tell you that. Marino, but I don't think he's in the last 12. But yes, he made a Super Bowl and he never made it back. Rich Gannon, there you go. Yeah, Rich Gannon, of course, lost to the Bucs. I think that was back in 98. Esiason, there's a good one with Cincinnati. Yep. McNabb. Did McNabb make it twice? No, right? I think he only made the Super Bowl once. I think he only made it once. Let's see what we got. And Dan, thank you very much, man. He says, I know you were a pretty big TV show guy. What have you been watching lately? There's so much good TV. Dude, there's way too much. I actually just started watching a show on Apple Plus that I love. It's only like 4 episodes in. I only started watching it because I love the actors. And I saw a new show. I'm like, all right, I'll check it out. It's with Jason Segel and Harrison Ford. And it's called Shrinking. So basically, the premise of the story, it's about shrinks. But like Jason Segel's he's basically like a shrink that's like going out of his mind because he's going through a tough point in his life. His wife just passed away. It's good so far. It's really good. But yeah, that's a new show I just started watching on Apple Plus. It's called Shrinking. I don't know if anybody in the chat started watching that, but if you haven't, if you have Apple Plus, yeah, check it out. It's a good show. What's going on, Pistol Pete? By the way, I know you asked about the Knicks post All-Star break. The plan is, I can't guarantee every Knicks game, but the plan is to do pretty much every Knicks game after the All-Star break. Let's see. Stan Humphries. Yes, I remember that Chargers team. You had that Chargers team, that was one of the most lopsided Super Bowls in the history of football. That was against the 49ers. I think the final score was I know the 49ers scored 49 because I remember as a kid saying the Niners scored their team name. I think it was 49-14. They got destroyed. But that Chargers team had Natron Means, who was like a 300-pound running back, who I loved. He also played for the Jaguars with Tom Coughlin when they went to the AFC Championship game. And then they had 2 good wide receivers. I want to say one of them was named Tony Mitchell, and I can't remember the other name. But, yeah, Stan Humphries in the 94 Chargers got destroyed in the Super Bowl. Obviously, Junior Seau was on that team, one of the greatest linebackers of all time. I'd say DJ had 2 good years. His rookie year, he showed a lot. I agree with that. He definitely had an above-average rookie year. Someone say Tony Eason, or did he make it back? I don't know if he made it back. Trent Dilfer. Well, Trent Dilfer won, though. This is about quarterbacks who made it and lost their first Super Bowl and never got back. Mark Bolger, I don't think ever made a Super Bowl. He never made a Super Bowl. Not as a starter, anyway. Jim Kelly made multiple Super Bowls. He made 4 in a row and lost. After watching the Super Bowl, I'm not even sure that we need at least a top 5 quarterback to win it all. We don't need a top 5 quarterback to win it all. Don't need a top 5 quarterback to win it all. It helps, for sure. But you don't need a top 5 quarterback. You need a very good one. If you want to consistently compete to win Super Bowls, here's my thought process. You can win any Super Bowl with a top 20 quarterback. Like the Niners this year could have won a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. It could have happened. The Eagles won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. You can win, any given team can win a Super Bowl with a top 20 quarterback, top 25 quarterback. If it's an incredibly built team, right? But to consistently, year in and year out, have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, you need a top 10 quarterback. And the closer you are to top 1, the more consistent you're going to be. But if you want to be able to year in, year out know you're going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl, you need a top 10 quarterback. Matt Hasselbeck. Not Tim, but yes, with the Seahawks. Who said Tom Brady's not a top 5 quarterback? I think that you could be a top 15 quarterback, but you got to be clutch. Yeah, I mean, the top 10 semantics. A guy that's at least in the discussion to be a top 10 quarterback. What about Tom Brady? Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. You can win a Super Bowl with a mediocre quarterback, but multiple, you need a top quarterback. Yeah, exactly. I think you could, like, if you build a team the way the 49ers have built their team, I mean, they've demonstrated. They haven't won, but I mean, my God, they got as close as you could get with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, they clearly could have won a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they could have won a Super Bowl this year with Brock Purdy. So, yes, if you could build a team up like they did, yeah. But to be able to maintain that in the salary cap era is next to impossible. When you have an incredible quarterback, or at least a very good quarterback, it hides a lot of blemishes on your roster. Yeah, somebody said Kerry Collins earlier. Kerry Collins was actually really good before the alcohol problems. Second year in the league. Actually, it might have been his rookie year. Somebody in the chat let me know. I think it was I think it was his second year. He took the Panthers to the NFC Championship game, his second year in the league. And then obviously with the Giants, he brought them to the Super Bowl 2002, went back to the playoffs against the 49ers. And then with the Titans, he actually had a lot of success later in his career, where I think they had like a 12 or 13 win season with Kerry Collins at quarterback one year, the Titans, if I'm not mistaken. Kerry Collins was a good quarterback. He just had problems off the field. No, Eli Manning's not a bad quarterback. Eli Manning's not a bad quarterback. Oh. And don't get me wrong, 2007 Eli was not nearly as good as 2011 Eli. But Eli Manning's a good quarterback. Let's see what we got. Who do you feel about the Giants to draft guys out of college? What do you mean? Who do I think? I'm going to get more in depth with the draft as it gets closer. But I'm going to have I'm probably going to have a Giants specific mock draft up in probably this week. I think I'm going to do my first round mock draft where I just do every team. And then the next week I'll probably have my first Giants specific mock draft. And then I'll probably do at least one more Giants specific mock draft, if not two more. Because I usually do one like right around now, right after the Super Bowl. I'll do one after the combine because that's when you have like a shift. One after free agency because that's when you really find out what needs have been established with the teams. And then maybe I'll do one like right before the draft. But I'll have my first Giants-specific mock draft up next week. This week, I think I'll probably just do a first-round mock draft. Let's see. Brady would have been back-to-back league MVPs and Offensive Player of the Year, and the Patriots team would have easily beat the Cards. Great to see you on, brother. What's going on, Dan, man? Thanks for being here, man. Giving Hurts $50 million would be the worst mistake in Eagles history. I don't know. I mean, Chiefs Kingdom, I think at this point they have no choice. I think they have to pay him. How do you not pay him? You have to pay him. And I'm not saying I want them to, but I think they have to pay him. What about Steve McNair, Stanley? What about him? Oh, in terms of quarterback stuff, yeah, I said him earlier. 99 lost to the Rams in what I think is one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. Kevin Dyson getting tackled down at the 1-yard line. Yeah, one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. I was pulling so hard for the Titans in that Super Bowl. I was not the biggest fan of the Greatest Show on Turf. So that was a great Super Bowl. That to me, if the Titans would have won that game, that might have went down as the most insane Super Bowl run in the history of the NFL. Because and obviously the Giants, you could still certainly make that argument, right? And they are, because they beat the undefeated Patriots. But that Titans team, they beat the Bills on the Music City Miracle in the wild card round when they were left for dead, and Wycheck throws it back to Dyson, and then Dyson runs it in 80 yards to the house. Then they beat a Jaguars team that beat them twice in the regular season, who was a great team that year. And the Titans were good too. I think they went like 12-4 or 13-3. But they were a wild card team because they just so happened to play in the same division as the Jaguars. They beat them, and then they almost beat the Greatest Show on Turf. That would have been an insane Super Bowl run had they been able to finish that off. Let's see what we got. I know that you want to wait until next week, but who do you think we were getting at wide receiver? What do you mean, in the draft? I don't think we're taking a wide receiver in the first round. I think we're taking a cornerback right now, if you ask me. Kerry Collins was on the 08 Titans that went like that. Yeah, he had a really good he had a really good couple of years with them. Best Super Bowls are 42, 43, 49, 51, and 52, and the one in the 70s between the Cowboys and Steelers. 42. Is that the? I know 30 is good too. I think, is 30 the Broncos-Packers Super Bowl? I think that's 30, right? I'm not great with the numbers. I think that one's 30. That one to me always holds a special place in my heart because when I was growing up as a kid, the AFC always got destroyed by the NFC. I think like the first Super Bowl I could remember watching as a kid was the Washington. I don't want to use their name in case it insults anybody, but when Washington destroyed the Bills, and I think that was the year after the Giants beat the Bills. I briefly remember the Giants one, but I remember the entirety of the next year between Washington and the Bills. And every year the NFC dominated the AFC. I think it was like 17 years straight. It was something insane. And then Elway knocked off Brett Favre, and they were like double-digit underdogs. Obviously, you got the helicopter spin when he got hit up in midair. So that one always holds a special place in my heart as one of the better Super Bowls I've ever seen. I think that Super Bowl 30, that was a good one. Let's see what we got. Oh, I told you I'm not good with the numbers. 46, 42, and 46 are the Giants Super Bowls. Yes. I'm not good with the numbers, but yes, 42 is the greatest Super Bowl of all time. Giants knocking off the Patriots 17-14. But you can't leave off the Packers one. You can't leave off the Titans and Rams. That was a great one. There's a lot of great Super Bowls. Even the Patriots when they beat the Rams was a great one. Chris, check out Bijan Robinson. He's the best running back in the draft. He's an elite back. That's a perfect We're not taking a first-round running back. If anybody's taking a first-round running back, it's going to be the Eagles. It's not going to be the Giants. Oh, my God. Do I need to educate this guy? And I've been hanging out. I haven't streamed in a while, so I'm hanging out with you guys for a bit. Do I need to educate Jose? Jose just said, okay, Giants won Super Bowl 42 with a bad quarterback. What about Super Bowl 46? Was he a bad quarterback at Super Bowl 46? I can't stand the hate for Eli Manning. I'm going to give you my favorite Eli Manning stat. I could throw at you in Super Bowl 40 during the Super Bowl 46 run that he threw for the most yards in the history of a single playoff run in the history of the NFL. And for the year at the time, I think it's been surpassed since, he threw for the most yards in the history of the NFL if you combine the playoffs and the regular season that year. I could throw that at you. We talk about how it's very hard to win Super Bowls once you pay your quarterback, right? Very hard. You know how many quarterbacks in the history of the NFL have won a Super Bowl when they took up over 10% of their team's salary cap? You know how many? I'm going to show you the list. I'm going to show you the list. The list is short. List is very short. That's the list. Not all these quarterbacks won, by the way. Eli Manning, 2007, 10.75%. Tom Brady, 2011, 10.76%. Tom Brady, 2014, 11.13%. Eli Manning, 2011, 11.71%. Peyton Manning. So far, I've said 3 names. Eli Manning, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Tom Brady, 12.42%. Tom Brady, 12.61%. Peyton Manning, 14.16%. Matt Ryan didn't win, 15.3%. Peyton Manning, 18.8%. Those that won were Peyton did not win all these years. He did not win in 2013 with the Broncos. Ryan did not win. I'm not sure if Peyton won in 2009. Brady won in 2021. Brady probably won in 2018. Peyton won in 2015. Eli won in 2011. Brady won in 2014. Brady lost in 2011 to Eli Manning, who took up 11.71%. And 2007, Eli Manning won. So 3 quarterbacks. This is my favorite Eli Manning stat. This is my favorite Eli Manning stat for people that tell me that Eli Manning was carried. I could throw at you the stat that the New York Giants defense in 2011 was ranked 27th, and they had the 32nd ranked rushing attack for the regular season. Eli Manning's one of 3 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that's won a Super Bowl, eating up over 10% of his team's salary cap. And he didn't do it once. He did it twice. And the other 2 quarterbacks are named Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And maybe Pat Mahomes did it this year. I'm not sure what his salary cap number was, but if he didn't, there's been 3 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. That's Tom Brady. That's Peyton Manning, and that's Eli Manning. Let's see what we got. Jalen Hurts wasn't meant to be a champion. He always loses in the big champion. Yeah. Sims was bad. He still holds a Super Bowl record for completion percentage. Sims was great. Yeah, he knocked out, and he beat Tom Brady twice. Sorry to hear about your son, Jason. Lane says, "Look, we need the football giants to draft players like cornerback, linesman going into the year 2023 for Giants. I mean, we need it. We're not. I don't think we're drafting a quarterback, but we need linebacker. We need a lot. We need offensive line help, wide receiver. Hurts will never make it to the big game again. I don't know. We'll see. Sorry to hear that, Jason. No, yeah, but David, the way that it's distributed, I don't know if it went 50 against the cap this year. Let me look. I very well could have. Let me look. At Mahomes this year, 2020. Yes, he's the 5th. He was $35 million against the cap this year. So he was well over 10%. So there's been now 4 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that have won a Super Bowl that have taken up 10% or more of the cap, and that's Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Tom Brady, and Pat Mahomes. That's a pretty good list to be on. Let's see what we got. Yo wouldn't complain with Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Quinn Ewers next year if DJ. You don't pay someone if you think he's the guy. You pay someone when you know he's the guy. There's no way you know he's the guy, Chris. Who, Daniel Jones? I'm not giving him a Pat Mahomes contract. I'm not doing that. I'm also not kicking him to the curb. That's what I think the Giants are going to do. They're going to give him like a Ryan Tannehill contract. Titans gave Tannehill, I think, 4 years, like $120. They're going to do something like that. That's what they're going to do. And it'll be a contract they could get out of after 2 or 3 years. And if he further develops and then he's the guy, that's when you give him that Pat Mahomes contract. Sup, Chris? I can't wait for the offseason content. I hope we could do so. Yeah, sports, man. Thanks for being here, man. Love hanging out with you guys. How do you feel about I'd be willing to give DJ 20. He's gonna laugh at that, man. He's gonna laugh at that. He's not taking 20 to 25 million. There's no way. Here's why, Beak. And I understand where you're coming from. And I would love to be able to sign for 20 to 25 million dollars. But here's the thing, Beak. If you're Daniel Jones, what's your incentive to sign a 20 to 25 million dollar contract? Other than just out of the kindness of your heart. Look around the league. There's 5 or 6 teams that need quarterbacks that would sign him. Even if you don't want to say 5 or 6, if you want to say 2, all it takes is 1 that's willing to give him a good sized contract. And if you're Daniel Jones, you just say, I'll just play on the franchise tag. The franchise tag is $32 million. Why am I going to sign a contract to play for $20 million a year when I get $32 million fully guaranteed? And if I play well, you either have to give me a raise with another franchise tag where you got to pay me like 38, or then you have to give me a big contract. There is no incentive whatsoever for Daniel Jones to sign a contract under $30 million a year. He'll just get tagged. That's why we're not getting him for 20 to 25. It's just not happening. I don't think. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we sign him 3 years, 75. I hope we sign him 4 years, 100. But if I'm Daniel Jones' agent, I say, if they're not willing to give you at least $30 million a year, let's just play on the $32 million, $32.4 million fully guaranteed franchise tag. You play well next year, and then they're going to give you the big contract. And if they don't, you just do what Kirk Cousins did. You get tagged again. You get $38 million. And if they don't want to pay you again, you get tagged again. So I don't see an incentive if you're Daniel Jones to sign for $20 to $25 million. I just don't. Because there's going to be teams that are willing to pay him if the Giants aren't. So it's why I don't see it happening. Let's see. Am I skipping me? No, I'm not skipping you. Stand up. What's going on, Cover Man? Thanks for popping in, buddy. Danny Dimes, 3 years, $100 million, fully guaranteed. I don't know what. I don't know. He's not going to get fully guaranteed, but he's going to get a good contract. If he doesn't get franchise tagged, he's going to get a good contract. It's just the market, man. It's the market. It's what these guys are going to get. It's what Geno Smith's going to get. Geno Smith's going to get that. It's the going rate for a good quarterback. Franchise quarterbacks are going to get 50 plus. To which Daniel Jones is not quite yet. Jack says, have you seen yes, I like him. A lot, actually. Sherrod says, bro, some of y'all are going to be in for a rude awakening. Sherrod's not lying, man. Let's just use context here, okay? Let me ask the chat this right now. Do you think it's fair to say, when you think about all the quarterback needy teams in the NFL right now, do you think it's fair to say that if Daniel Jones hit the open market, he would be as desirable? I'm not even telling you he'd be more desirable. I think you can make an argument he would be, but he would be as desirable as Ryan Tannehill was 3 years ago. Do you think that's fair to say? Let me get the chat's opinion on that. Then I'm going to tell you what Ryan Tannehill signed for 3 years ago when the market was significantly lower than it is now, when the salary cap was like $170 million a year as opposed to $220. Okay? So let's for argument's sake, let's say they're even. Let's say they're even. Okay? Let me look when Ryan Tannehill signed this contract. Ryan Tannehill signed the contract extension 4 years, and it was in 2020. Now I'm going to tell you what the salary cap was in 2020. The NFL salary cap in 2020 was $198.2 million. That was the year before the pandemic. And then the salary cap went down for the first time ever because of the pandemic to 182.5. So when he signed the contract, the salary cap was $198.2 million. This year, the 2023 NFL salary cap is $224.8 million. So it's $26 million more. When he signed the contract in 2020, Ryan Tannehill's contract was 4 years, $118 million, $62 million guaranteed. Okay? That's just under $30 million a year. When the market, and 29.5 on average, on a $190 whatever million dollars. So that's equivalent with the increase in the market probably to $33 million a year now, $34 million a year now. So if you're telling me that Daniel Jones is even with what Ryan Tannehill was in 2020 at the age of 32, when Daniel Jones is 25, you're telling me Daniel Jones is worth $33, $34 million a year based on this market. That's what you're telling me. So that's his market. David L., thank you very much. He says, doesn't NFL renegotiate TV contracts this year? Cap space will only go up. Yeah, so you have the Amazon deal that they think is going to spike it. But even if you do it conservatively, and I think I told Authentic this on Twitter, if you do it conservatively, this year it only went up 8%. It's going to go up more than that. Usually it goes up at least 10%. And they're saying it's going to go up more than normal with the Amazon deal. But even if you only do 8%, the salary cap in 2025 is going to be about $260. I think it's going to be closer to $280, $285. But a conservative estimate would say $260, $265. How do I contribute to your show? What do I have to do? You don't have to do anything, man. Just hang out and talk sports, man. I say to have a good night, Chase, man. Thanks for popping in. When I do these live streams, this is what people ask for tips. Okay, it isn't even a tip, but when I do these live streams, the vibe that I want to come across is, say I have 600 people in here, 700 people, whatever. If there's 600 people in the chat, I want 600 people to feel like just you and me, we're sitting at a bar and we're talking sports. That's what these live streams are. Just come and hang out, talk sports. Yeah, NFL's doing a big deal with YouTube also, man. Each team gets $375 million every season for YouTube. Dude, that's crazy. I didn't know about that, Joe. Wow, I didn't know that. Mickey says, I like listening. Your accent is awesome too, bro. I appreciate it. Hey, man. Born and raised. Do you think Lamar Jackson will be a Raven next year? I don't know, actually. I haven't been keeping up with the Lamar Jackson thing, but the last time I looked, it seemed to me like it was leaning towards it's at least possible he won't be. And I thought for the longest time it was a lock. But I haven't been keeping up with the Lamar Jackson thing. I don't know if there's been some progression. I haven't been keeping up the last couple of weeks. So maybe somebody in the chat knows something that I don't. So I think in the end he's going to be back, but it's at least appeared more possible than I thought that there was at least an opening that he might not be. Landon says, Chris, who do you want the most in free agency? I want a linebacker. I don't know who's going to fit our budget, but I want a linebacker in free agency. I mean, Edmonds makes the most sense, being that he's from the Bills, right? But I want a linebacker. How high is Bellinger's ceiling to you? All right, don't go crazy, okay? Don't go crazy. Don't call me biased. Because you're asking me about a ceiling. You're not asking me about what I think he'll be. Ceiling means like best case scenario. Everything works out. I'm going to give you a name. And I'm not telling you he's going to be this guy because I don't think he's going to be. George Kittle. I think he's a poor man's George Kittle. But if you're asking me what his ceiling is, I'll go that. I don't think he's going to reach that. But I'll go that that's his ceiling. But I don't think he's going to reach that. I think he's going to be a good tight end, though. I think he's going to be a good tight end. I think he's going to be a good player for the New York Giants. I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's going to be a very good blocker. He's a sure-handed tight end. I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a very good player for the New York Giants. But if you're like asking me like in terms of like the better tight ends in the league, who he's a poor man's version of, like who his style of play is, I think Kittle, he's close to, in terms of his style of play, he's closer to a guy like Kittle as opposed to a guy like Kelsey. That's what I'll say. His style of play. He's not going to be Kittle. Kittle's one of the greatest tight ends ever. Like, I love George Kittle. But he's more that style of tight end than a guy like a Travis Kelsey. And he's not reaching his ceiling. Let's see. They asked ceiling, Brandon. They didn't ask me what I think he's going to be. Like, I could say Justin Herbert's ceiling might be Pat Mahomes, but he's not reaching it. They asked ceiling. Best tight end ever. Best tight end ever. I mean, I think it's one of two guys. It's probably either, well, it's one of three. Here's the thing. When you ask best tight end ever, there's different ways that you could answer this. Are we answering this best tight end over the course of their career? Or are we answering this as the best tight end at their peak? Best tight end over the course of their career is pretty much undeniably Tony Gonzalez. It's either Tony Gonzalez or Antonio Gates, I think. Best tight end at their peak, when you're factoring in blocking, receiving, the whole package, you can make a strong argument it's Rob Gronkowski. At their peak. The problem with Gronkowski is he suffered a lot of injuries. You could also throw Kelsey into that discussion, by the way. And he's trending towards entering that discussion with Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. But if you're talking over the course of a career, I think it's Tony Gonzalez or Gates, but probably Gonzalez. And if you're talking over their peak, I think you can make an argument it's Rob Gronkowski. Let's see. Yeah, if Kelsey gets 5 or 6 more years, he could definitely be the go-to. Yeah, he definitely could be. Gronk was unguardable with two DBs covering. Gronk was a monster. The thing that I always like respected about Belichick is so insane, man. Because I'm like thinking back to those Patriot teams. Like, you think about how like teams always copy tendencies in the NFL, right? Like they call it a copycat league. Belichick was the first guy to implement the 2 tight end, like where he featured 2 tight ends heavily in his offense with Aaron, the guy who killed himself? Aaron Hernandez and Gronkowski. Belichick was really the first guy to really heavily implement the running back by committee. Belichick was really the first guy to heavily utilize the slot wide receiver as an extension to the run game when he brought in Wes Welker from the Miami Dolphins. He was always one step ahead of the game. Let's see. Bavaro's great. I didn't get a chance to appreciate Mark Bavaro, unfortunately, but yeah, he was great. David, I'm sure there are, or they're just delusional and they just want to, they want to hold on to that hope that they're right. But I'm sure there's still Giants fans that think he's not going to get paid. Bellinger's ceiling, I believe, could be Jason Witten. I mean, Jason Witten's one of the top, 5 tight ends ever? Top 6 tight ends ever? I mean, that's a pretty good ceiling. Shannon Sharp was great. The only issue with Shannon Sharp was I'm thinking more of his brother. Sterling Sharp was great, but he didn't play that long. Shannon Sharp had a long career in the NFL. Shannon Sharp was definitely probably a top 10 tight end ever. He was on those great Bronco team. Novacek, great with the I hate to say that, but with the if we're going back to that era, Terry, that's like when I first started watching football. Novacek, and then with the Niners, you had what was his name? Brent. Was it Brent? Who was the tight end with the Niners that was really good too during those Novacek? Brent Jones, I think it was, right? Brent Jones, I think he was a good tight end. William Floyd was on that team, the fullback. The days of the fullback, man. I miss those days. Yeah, Brent Jones, yeah. Gronk still over Shannon. Gronk was the GOAT's number one. I think Gronk at his peak is arguably the greatest tight end of all time. It's just that his peak was so short-lived because of injuries. Well, Brandon, that's what you do, though. Ceiling doesn't mean that you think he's going to reach it. Ceiling means if everything pans out. I think a more appropriate term is like a poor man's George Kittle. I think he's that style of tight end. But is he going to reach that? No. But I think he'd be a very good tight end. I like him. I think he'd be an above average tight end. I like him. Yeah, I know they signed Lawrence Cager. Rathman, yes. Olstott. We're talking about fullbacks, right? Rathman was on that great. That 49ers team was incredible back then. The Niners and the Cowboys. Larry Donnell. Now we're just naming Giants tight ends. Larry Donnell, Will Tye. Who else? What's his name? The dude we got from the Cowboys who later went to the Bears. What's his name? Who was really good for that 1 year for Eli Manning. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Kellen Winslow, yeah, with the Chargers, definitely one of the greatest tight ends of all time. Martellus Bennett, there you go. Yep, Martellus Bennett. Evan Ingram. No. You don't get to slip Evan Ingram in there. You don't get to slip. You thought I was going to miss that? You don't get to slip Evan Ingram in there. And listen, I like Evan Ingram, okay? I think Evan Ingram's a really good guy. He seems like a really nice guy. He's really talented. I felt bad for Evan Ingram. I thought he handled the criticism incredibly well. And he had a great year this year with the Jaguars, and I'm happy for him. You don't get to slip Evan Ingram in there. I wasn't going to miss that. Nah. You don't get to slip Evan Ingram in there. Let's see. What's going on, Demir Mannix popping in the stream, man? Tana, any comp picks this year? Yeah, we got two. We got we're gonna have a comp pick from the Evan Ingram. Ironically, we're gonna have I think it's a 5th round pick for Evan Ingram, and then I want to say we got a 6th round. I think we got a 5th and a 6th or a 5th and a 7th. But I know we have 2 comp picks, or at least we're projected to. And Greg, man, thank you very much, man. Do you think the Giants should trade for Lamar and top 5 players you like the Giants to sign this offseason? No. Well, one, no. I don't. No, I do not think we should trade for Lamar. No. Absolutely not. Trade for Lamar. One, you're going to be taking on a quarterback who's going to be making over $50 million, and you'd have to give up multiple 1st-round picks. So no, absolutely not. I'm sorry, I got the hiccups. I shoot a roll with Jones and see what he can become. And if he doesn't become something, I eventually draft his replacement. And I just keep building up the football team. So no, my answer to that is no on Lamar Jackson. If he was a free agent, that's a different conversation. But if I have to trade for him, absolutely not. As far as the top 5 players you like the Giants to sign this offseason, real quick, I'll look at I'm going to do more in-depth videos with free agency probably in about 2 weeks once I know like what Daniel Jones and Barkley and everybody else. But let me take a quick look. Linebacker is the first position I'm looking at. Because I just feel that that's the position that we're going to be able to get a pretty high impact player because linebackers don't make near the amount of like a wide receiver or cornerback does. So that's and it's a huge need of ours. So I think that's the first position I'm going to be looking at. So outside of the obvious names, like Levante David's another name, but he's old. He's 33. I know people have brought him up to me. Devin Bush has been like a bust since he's been in the league. Like he has not lived up to that draft pick with the Steelers, but he's young. He's 25. Maybe you could get him at an affordable rate. But the big name is Tremaine Edmunds. And his market right now, at least according to Spot Track, which I never go by, is $11 million a year. But it's just an estimate. It doesn't mean anything. But, yeah, I'm looking at linebackers. I think that – and then I think you need to look at wide receivers, but you need to look at, like, second-rate wide receivers because it's such a thin market at the wide receiver position that the guys that are, like, thought to be the highest, wide receivers in this market are going to get severely overpaid because there's no great wide receivers. So, like, I don't know, like a guy like Jacoby Myers is probably going to get way too much money. He's probably going to get a lot more than you think he should. Juju Smith-Schuster, probably the same thing. Even a guy like Hardman, probably the same thing. So I'm looking more at like second tier guys that maybe, if I'm Shane, I think fit the offense, that fit the scheme. And, just looking at some guys on the list, DJ Chark, he's a name. I don't know what his market would be, but he's a name with a guy that's had at least some success in the NFL. There's not a lot. There's just not. It's a really, really thin market. Paris Campbell's a name people have brought up. He's a slot guy, but he may be semi-affordable, and he's still relatively young. It's a really bad wide receiver market. There's not a lot to choose from. But those are the positions I'm looking at. And maybe get a corner if you could get one relatively cheap, but stop with the Kenny Golladay talk. And Demir, he says, in my opinion, the Giants choose a first on a wide receiver draft or trade. If they're going to, I could. I'm not saying. Here's what I'll say, Demir. If it's not this year, I think within the next 2 years, I would not be surprised at all if the Giants trade a first-round pick to get a wide receiver. It may not be this year. It might be next year. But I'm not going to say I expect that, but I am not going to be surprised at all if they do that at all. So if they do that, I will understand it. If they could get a young, established, high-end wide receiver for a late first-round pick plus, I could see it happening. We'll see. I don't think they're going to force a wide receiver pick, though, with that pick. If they like a wide receiver and it fits the value, they'll take him. Jacob says, Tana, how do you determine the comp picks? It's a formula, but basically, without me, because it's all boring trying to describe it, but basically the way the comp pick formula works is it's based off the salary that the player that leaves your team receives. And that, like for instance, when we lost Landon Collins, he was a top-end safety, right? I think at the time he was the highest paid safety in football. So we received the highest potential, round comp pick that you could receive. It was a third-round comp pick. It starts at round 3. It goes all the way to round 7. So Ingram, for example, got like $9 million this year. So it qualified as a 5th-round comp pick. So it's based off the contract that the player signs for when they leave your team. But if you bring in an outside player for equal or more money, it negates the pick. So let's just say, for example, this offseason, we lose Julian Love. Let's say we don't sign Julian Love. Julian Love signs with somebody for $11 million a year. And then we sign Tremaine Edmonds for $13 million a year. That would negate the potential comp pick we would receive for Julian Love. So basically, the comp formula rewards teams that keeps their homegrown talent and doesn't look to acquire high-priced outside free agents. And it rewards teams that loses homegrown talent, right? So if you're a team like the Steelers that constantly builds through the draft, doesn't look outside to spend a lot of money in free agency, you're consistently going to be rewarded with comp picks. Same thing with the New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens, right? Teams like that over the years. So in a nutshell, that's what it is. Yeah, the Sam Beal pick wasn't a comp pick. That was a supplemental pick. I think that's what it's called. I think it was a supplemental pick. So I don't know if it's every year. It might be like every couple of years. The NFL has what is like the supplemental draft. And I think if I'm not mistaken, it's for like players that got hurt in college. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But that can't, for some reason or another, can't enter that year's draft. But you could draft them the year before the upcoming draft. But in order to do so, you have to give up said draft pick. I think the Giants actually did that with Dave Brown too, the quarterback out of Duke. I think it was we we surrendered, I want to say it was a supplemental pick, which equated to a first-round pick. But with Beal, it was a third-round pick. Let's see. What's your thoughts on Rihanna halftime performance? I didn't think it was bad. I mean, generally, a lot of times I watched the halftime, I think it was horrible. I don't know how it was received. I don't know what the reviews were. I would say it was an above average, and I'm not like a big Rihanna fan, but I would say it was an above average Super Bowl halftime performance. I don't think it was incredible, but I think it was pretty good. It was a lot better than some of the more recent ones I've seen. I thought it was better than I don't even remember I can't remember the guy's name, but he sings the song Blinded by the I can't even remember the guy's name, but it was recently, and his show, he had like a lot of mirrors around him while he was singing. I thought it was better than that show. Phil, man, thank you very much. He says, what happens if we get Carr, the quarterback, and Dan Gleesack at run? We're not getting Carr. No, it wasn't Bruno Mars. It was Weekend. That's who it was. It was Weekend. I thought it was better than that. What happens if we get Carr and Dan Gleesack? We're not getting Carr. Maybe we get Gleesack. We're not getting Carr. There's no way we're getting Carr. We're keeping Daniel Jones. Like what? Other than like name recognition, give me like a compelling argument. Like people in the chat, if you honestly side with Carr over Daniel Jones, give me a compelling argument for it, because I'm going to give you a compelling argument against it. Carr's 32. Daniel Jones is 25. Carr's coming off a year in which he had the best wide receiver in football in Devontae Adams. He had one of the top 5 tight ends in football in Darren Waller. And playing with players he's played with for the last 3 or 4 years. A much better supporting cast. And he had a worse year than Daniel Jones did. When Daniel Jones was throwing to practice squad wide receivers. And with Daniel Jones, if we're just talking strictly from the New York Giants perspective, outside of the fact that he's 7 years younger, Daniel Jones has a year from within this offense. So when you bring back Daniel Jones, you're getting a guy that now is familiar with Dable's scheme. He's familiar with Kafka's play calling. He's familiar with these wide receivers, and he's going to build on that. If you bring on a guy like David Carr, you're getting a 32-year-old quarterback that's never played in this offense, that's never thrown the ball to any of these wide receivers. Why would you want to pay more for Carr? I don't see it, other than just name recognition. I don't think Carr is worth more than Daniel Jones on the open market right now. Maybe you want to argue they're equal, but even if they're equal, or even if Carr's slightly more valuable than Daniel Jones on the open market, I don't think if it's that close, I think Daniel Jones is more valuable for the Giants, for the simple fact that they know him from within the building. He knows the offense. He knows the players. He knows the scheme. So what is the argument to bring in a guy like Carr? He's not a big enough upgrade. If he's an upgrade at all, I don't think he is over Daniel Jones. I don't see a compelling argument for it, but I see like a lot of people bring it up. Phil, let's see what we got. Mountain says, I would love to see us sign a linebacker and draft one early to shore up that huge hole in the defense. I don't think we'll do well. We might. We will definitely draft a linebacker, even if we sign one. I don't know if we're going to draft one super early. Maybe we draft one in the second if we sign a linebacker, or the third. We're definitely going to draft a linebacker, even if we sign one, for sure. I just don't know if it'll be really early. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, right now we have no talent in that linebacker room. I mean, you hope some of these rookies develop, off of last year. Obviously, we lost one to injury before the year started, and McFadden's a rookie. You hope he develops, but I don't see like a definitive starter going into next year currently on the roster. Brendan says, what about a trade for someone like Renfro? He's a solid, good wide receiver. I don't know, I don't know what the asking price would be, but let's see. News says signed 3-year, 4-year option for $30 million a year. I would love that if they could get that done new. I think it'll be a little bit more than that, but if it's around that price, I'm fine with that. If it's like $33 million a year and it's a 3-year out, I'm completely fine with that based off the market. I probably don't want to go over 35, 36, but to me, it's about the guaranteed money. That's the most important thing. Yeah, they also know him as a person, as a leader. Let's see. We need to be honest about DJ. He's not top 5, but he sure as hell isn't bottom 15. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. He's not top 5. I think I said it earlier. I think there's like 7 quarterbacks right now that I would clearly say are better than Daniel Jones. And then I think there's like 7 or 8 quarterbacks that you could argue. Like, obviously, a lot of people are going to go with certain quarterbacks over others. But to me, there's like a group after that of like 7 or 8 quarterbacks that are that based off how they do next year could move up or down in that ranking system. And I think Jones is in that. I think he's in that 8 to 15 range right now. Let's see. But I was late. I went overtime today because I wanted to hang out with you guys for a bit because I haven't been live in a bit. I got work tomorrow. I got to get up early, but I want to hang out with you guys for a bit. Haven't done one of these streams in a bit. I plan on doing these. Hopefully you guys come back. I know you guys will. You guys are the best community on YouTube. So hopefully you guys come back. I'll be doing these at least once a week going forward, because there'll be more to talk about now. And I'll be having videos along the way. I'll definitely doing a mock draft this week. I'm sure there'll be some Giants news coming out. Once it starts coming out, we'll be having videos. We'll be doing mock drafts, free agency. There's going to be a lot to talk about. And the Knicks content will be coming up as well. But I appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys for being here. I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the offseason. We got our coaches back. And we're starting to build this team right. But, guys, be good. Thank you guys for being here. Matt says, thanks for getting me through the work night. Brother, go Giants. Thank you for listening, man. Have a great rest of your day at work. Giants Mafia says, mock draft vids are needed. Oh, they're coming. Going to have my first mock draft probably Saturday. Because maybe Friday. Either Friday or Saturday, but probably Saturday of my first mock draft. It's going to be first round only. And then the next week we'll do Giants specific. And then we're going to do some film breakdown videos as well. I'm going to have a guy on the channel that's we're going to talk about prospects together. So probably I'm thinking I'll probably kick that in like 2 or 3 weeks. We'll start talking, hand selecting, maybe like 10 to 12 prospects I want to like single out before the draft. So I'm looking forward to it. But guys, be good. Have a good rest of your night. And we'll talk soon. Be good, guys.